This is my real skin.
That's it. Shoot, man, you're a
I'm
superhero.
not.
You know that, right?
I don't have to be professional. I don't have to wear the tights. This is just me at home. It often means, living the real rock and roll life where you don't shower. Obviously, it's a problem, you know, showering. So, but you know,
Man,
this is me in my habitat. You know, so that's just that's just how it is. I
man.
wouldn't call
Well,
myself
heck,
a
man, you're a
superhero
bona
exactly
fide.
because superheroes don't have bills to pay. Most of them are fucking rich and they're orphans. Yeah. So
Man, dude.
I'm here in the spot. We just finished having rehearsal actually, so they don't get to see this face during rehearsal. This is like I said. This is when I peel the layers off. You know this my footsies. Well, right now I got my let's see. I've got my clothes on for my brother-in-law because I wouldn't own these fucking things otherwise. Somebody had to gift this shit to me, obviously.
That's gangster. That's so
So
gangster.
don't mind me. I'm here in the place.
You
This
guys are
is
looking
the ground floor.
at the lab right there, the empire of World Eater Studios. If I correct me if I'm wrong.
World Eater Recordings, not studios.
My bad, I'm tripping. I even wrote that down. World Eater
Yeah, no,
Recordings.
don't worry about every. Nobody gets it right, even though it's all legalized and shit. But it's the United States. Who pays attention to this shit?
Man,
Give me a second. Let me
plus
let me
World Eater.
let me put my professional face on because this is obviously not really appropriate for a session like this. So here,
It looks
look at the
so
drum set
cool though,
for a second.
man.
There,
World
look at that.
Eater
You guys can.
Recordings, World Eater Music Publishing too. Jared is definitely legit,
Okay.
man. What's up, man?
I never put
Dude,
this face on at this time of night, so
it's
BRB.
amazing.
I'm gonna go
Man, I mean,
in the
whatever you
control
feel
room where I can
comfortable with.
just sit and be a lazy bum.
Man, you are not lazy. Dude, you're in the lab, and even
Hey,
that picture of you
it,
in the
it
lab
takes
sleeping.
it takes a lot of work to be this lazy. Don't get it twisted. I have to do a lot so that I don't have to do shit or as little as possible. So, you know,
Man,
hard
you
work is
be working
overrated.
in your
That's that
sleep.
American slave shit. Don't get it twisted. I mean,
Nah, I
hard
know a
work is
brother be
good, but
working
but that
hard.
that fake, philosophy shit. You gotta work hard for who? That's don't that's that shit.
Man, but you do work hard, and it's showing, man, with all the stuff that I've been able to even discover about you. Even though I knew certain things, there's some things looking into what you do. I'm like, man, this brother's been doing. He's been grinding, and we're gonna talk about that because there's.
I'm halfway scared of what you may have found because I have no idea what's on the internet. So got no idea
I'll keep it
whatsoever.
light.
No. You can dig into it. I mean, listen, go ahead. Like Barbara Walters, we can whatever, man. I'm ready. I'm not gonna
Well, I'm gonna.
cry, Tony. I'm not gonna cry.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
What's up, Amazon? I see you out there in these streets. The
right.
YouTube, Instagram streets.
I felt so free.
So I'm going to introduce a brother. Dude, this introduction is going to take a grip, so I'm going to try to condense it. But this is Jared Hassan Foles. Or is it Foles? I always wondered that. I think I asked you that,
It's
like, are you Latin?
it's Foles to English people. It's Foles to Hispanic people. It's I don't know what it is to the Russians. It's or some shit.
I can't speak Cyrillic.
Man. I'm New York City born, man. I don't. It's something different to every other motherfucker every 5 minutes. I know what we say and how we say and how we introduce it. And I guarantee you somebody will probably get it fucking wrong. Which, you know, we quietly swallow when they do, but we actually hate that shit. So I won't lie about it. I'm not gonna see him just play the nice. No, it's okay. No, fuck that. But we don't necessarily let people know that we hate that. We just kind of look at them and nod because we black people, we scared to shed everybody on the planet, even without. Well, they're scared based on their own guilty feelings. It's not because we do anything, but we take advantage of it wherever possible. Right? So that's. Listen, I'm only being serious. It's not even a fucking joke. We take advantage of that wherever possible. Why the fuck not? We should.
Word. Man, well, this brother right here, Jared Hassan Foles or Foles, is a singer, songwriter, singer, songwriter, engineer, filmmaker, producer, and man, composer. What has this brother not done, man? I mean, like creatively, like dude.
I was about to say creatively because I have not become that 100,000 air yet. How about that? I haven't done that.
You're gonna get it though. You're gonna get some like a gang of stuff, man. And man, he's in a band.
I have not been sacrificed out for political office because they keep trying to dangle that out in front of people. Why don't you run for office? That's just how to get yourself assassinated. All right, it's better to be the black hand of power behind things.
Dude, you pretty much like, man, like let me just ask a question. Like, dude, how did you start, bro? Like what's your, I usually ask this at the end, but I'm going to ask it now, and I'm probably going to ask something similar to it at the end. What is your whole philosophy, and what's got you driven to like where you're doing projects for not only Disney or Marvel, which I wanted to talk about that because I didn't know What If even had a TV series, but you've worked with the UN, and of course you've preceded a lot of different things, like even the things that were going on with Afropunk. You were doing stuff like that before. So what's your drive, man, and what has kept you to be such a Renaissance man that you are?
Dude, Renaissance man.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna get in trouble.
I should have worn my top hat. I'm a Renaissance
Sorry, man. That was a weird question, but
No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm a Renaissance man.
By the way, happy belated birthday.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
I'm a November baby too, so man, shouts.
Yeah. Let me condense down, I guess, what you asked. How did I get started? Because that's how I got started, I guess, is separate from why and the philosophy or philosophies or whatever the hell. How did I get started? I guess it depends on what, right? If you're talking about how I got started with the studio, that's one thing. If it's a matter
we're gonna go into that, but
music, I mean, so I'm just trying to take what you said, just condense it into something that's, easy to swallow, so that people who are watching this out on the internet can be like, motherfucker, can you answer a fucking question? And that sort of,
well, let me make it more simple. Let me make it more simple, because that's my fault. I tend to be long-winded because I get overwhelmed by so many creative things that I know about a cat,
Son, and 90% of the time we don't say shit. People think we run our mouths, but in reality, we don't say a goddamn thing.
You sound like my brother.
You're like, listen to that bullshit. We're like, all right. They only pay attention when we respond, right? They don't pay attention when we're actually listening, watching them people and shit, and that's the shit they miss. So yeah, I feel you. So, please.
I guess, like, what is your philosophy, and what has driven you to the point where you're not just a musician, but you've done acting, you've also worked behind the scenes, even in production, and you've worked even in the corporate industry, such as like Goldman Sachs and all that. What is your philosophy, and what has kept you, like, what's your drive, and what's kept you going on, as far as like, just like, were there certain things that were new to you that even as a musician, a lot of us probably, man, I think you're like one of the few, you, Bevis and Hadley Morell are the few that I could think of offhand that have done some of the things that you guys are doing, like production wise and just overall reach, like, and is it just in the moment, or is it something that you're planning out, or both? Like, what's your philosophy when it comes to just like your drive? We're going to get to the bands, we're going to get to the music and all that stuff too, but I just want to know, man, like, what, it's a weird question, but like, what's your whole drive to do what you've done?
It's not a weird question at all. It makes a lot of sense. And here's my real basic answer. My drive and my philosophy is based on doing whatever it is that I can tolerate doing for as long as I can do it, that also keeps me free and extends the reach and longevity of my progeny throughout all of time. Now that sounds like it's some sort of crazy metaphysical, philosophical shit, but I think for me it's not. It's very much a reality. We are temporal creatures. We are only here to be here for a very limited span of time. Within that, we all exist in fucking same paradigms that we tend to exist in, whatever culture or nation or set of laws or credos we have to survive in, and being Black and Native American and the whole shit in this fucking place, the way it works, whether that's on a happy day or a sad or pissed off day, it comes down to whatever it is that I have to do. I have to be able to do something that I can stick to, that I can focus on. And the only thing I'm going to be able to focus on for myself is something that I fucking like doing. And what I mean by like doing is, even when shit is going wrong, because nothing is perfect, even the shit you like can get really fucked up by people, fucked up by things, fucked up by tools. And what will keep my attention going and keep my desire or my will to fight through whatever that bad day might be, to continue to try and build those good days going forward, right? And to be able to build on and collect enough of that so that I can support my life, support my home, my family, not just for my own existence, but beyond my existence. And I think to a certain degree, there's a lot of us just aren't taught to think that way. Unfortunately, though, we are surrounded by cultures, people who not only think that way, but because they think that way, they spend a great deal of their existence interrupting our ability to live and think and build that way, right? Wow. So when people talk about why there's such this wealth gap between Black people and white people, or, between red ants and blue ants or some shit or whatever the fuck, it's not an accident. There's a reality, and that reality is that there are people and there are human beings who base their ability to have their progeny exist on this plane, on this planet, and be able to live freely by whoever else they can keep from eventually overtaking them. Wow. That's how they believe. That's how they live. That's what the United States is based on.
Yep.
And I think a lot of our people don't necessarily think in those terms, but in my family, they definitely, to a large degree, thought in those terms. And you take it from the micro and you expand it into the macro, every little bit that you can, one step at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time. You don't beat yourself up about being imperfect, because nobody is, right? That's got nothing to do with shit. But if you're working a job that you hate, then that's going to result in your health, that's going to result in your finances, going to result in your life, you may end up being on that job 20 years, maybe 40 years. But if you can't stand it, what are you doing? You're making everything harder for yourself. And so I never want to make life that hard for me, because in reality, being born and raised in New York City as a person of who I am and what I look like and what the world tries to define as me, whether that be true or not, is a fucking explosive proposition. A fucking explosive proposition. And so the best way for me not to end up exploding upon myself, upon others, upon anything, especially in a way that doesn't provide any real benefit, is to make sure that I'm working the things that are satisfying, right? And the other side of that, because one thing I believe in is that I can't do well unless others are doing well around me. Right? There is no rich person in a universe of poor people.
Word.
There just isn't, doesn't exist, right? It's a closed loop system. That's what it is. Whether people think of it that way or not, that's what it is. So, I chose this, one, because of the enjoyment for what it does for my spirit, not just music and performing in and of itself, that and acting was my initial thing. But I decided early on, when I was still a teenager, that if I was going to be doing this for a living, if this was what I want to do to avoid all the other shit, and to be honest with you, I wasn't able to avoid it, right? Plenty of jobs I had that I did not want and I hated, but I always made sure that there was going to be a time limit on those things one way or another. That I could do something that not only that I enjoyed, but would have a reach beyond just myself, right? Because, for me, music making and songwriting, it's not just about songwriting, and I don't do this for attention. So even though I initially had a life on the stage to a certain degree, and to a large degree I still do, not a large degree, not enough of a degree, but that's not a matter of the attention, right? It's a matter of the enjoyment and the messages that are sent out. That's really what that's about. We're trying to send messages not just to our direct community, even though that's a large part of it, but we're trying to send messages to people overseas. We're trying to send messages to people in Nairobi. We're trying to send messages to people in Accra. We're trying to send message to, people in Bhopal. We're trying to send messages to, Uyghurs and folks in Tokyo or Japan. And we're even trying to send messages to, Budapest and London, and Brixton and Berlin. We're trying to send messages. Me and the ones that I'm blessed to be able to do this with. And hopefully build something that we can leave behind, literally, that we can leave behind, so that hopefully nobody else has to deal in the miserable side of the shitty part of this existence, especially those that look like us. Now, this stuff isn't just for those that look like us, because there's a whole bunch of people who don't look like us who are going through a bunch of shit too. And a lot of them are going through double shit because they look like the other, but they don't live like the other, right? They don't, they can't, they never did. Privilege is a real thing, but there are a lot of people who will never understand what that is, what that means, and they'll never even experience what that even feels like, because they got their own world of shit. There's messages for them too, to be honest with you. Some of those messages they ain't gonna fucking like.
Well, that's
but,
music,
but
man.
but
It's
there's some messages that are there to uplift them as well, right?
yeah.
So um, that's the basics of it, I guess, to a certain degree. I'm sure I can get a lot deeper into it, but then we'll be here for fucking 75 years. And I might as well write a book, and I'm gonna be. I've definitely decided I'm too lazy for that shit. I should have finished the book that I was starting to write when I was 23. I'm not going to do that shit now. Fuck that shit. I got too many video games.
Man. Wow. Well, with that too, and I'm sure, man, you could write a whole book. What's your background? I remember we talked and you mentioned that definitely you got into theater before you were even playing music, right? Am I?
Yeah. I guess, acting was my, technically piano playing and acting was my first thing. And I say technically piano playing because I probably played piano better when I was 4 than I ever would now.
Man.
But it was acting, and I think that more than anything is a product of what was the New York City public school system. To a certain degree. I mean, but I also think it's a basic, I guess, parent thing. I mean, I don't have any kids yet or whatever. So, I think parents have kids, and when those parents are working parents, they think, hey, hun, what can we do with this kid so that we're not all fucked up and have to supervise him like 27 hours a day, and that we can get away and smoke a joint and have some cuddle time and act like we're still fucking human beings. Oh, you know what? Let's get him some, what's the word? Extracurricular activity. Oh, well, guess what? I heard that the school is putting on a play or something like that. Not a play. So I think that's how it started. And I tend to get real specific wherever I can. So just be ready, man. So here's one of those real specific answers. So when I was in, I don't know if it was in first grade or third grade. It might have been first grade. I actually played Martin Luther King. And,
Really?
And yeah, I did part of the I Have a Dream speech.
Wow.
Because they were trying to program us with the bullshit. That's what they do. Let's use Martin Luther King and let's take 5% of what he said and teach it to the young black kids so they don't wake up and cut our throats in our sleep for all the shit our ancestors fucking did to them. Right? So
and yet they ignore the other speeches that he made.
Right. Well, that's what this is how it works. This is what they do, right? This is what they do. So apparently it struck people. I mean, literally, I was doing that. I don't know what the effect of it is. I'm just doing it. I'm, trying to make my parents happy. Like, and they're like, and them and the teachers, the people, they were like, oh my God, we have to keep them in. He's really good. He's to keep doing this. And so that's kind of what they did. I think if it was, now I was deep in athletics too, but at the time the focus was theater. That's where it started, and that's where they tried to wanted to keep me. And you learn more and you do more, and of course you grow more, but to a small degree, while I didn't feel this way, the people around you start to pigeonhole a child into a role that they see happening worthwhile. Doesn't mean that you're not talented, doesn't mean that you're not skilled, but this is what humans do. So one thing led to another and another play and then another thing here and there, and then I eventually was in a Mosh Repertory Theater, who was run by Rosetta Lenoir, who is a very famous actress. People in our generation will probably best know her for being the mother on Give Me a Break, if you remember, if those who remember that TV show with Nell Carter.
Yeah.
But long before she did that, she was famous in she did over 100 movies. She was the goddaughter of Duke Ellington, not Duke Ellington. Um, God, I should be ashamed for forgetting my Black History days.
Man,
In
hey,
this
we
way.
all, man. I
But
know how that
whatever,
is.
man. People can look up Rosetta Lenore or Lenoir and figure it out. But she actually did a movie while I was in that school that some people might know of called Brother from Another Planet.
Yeah,
Um,
and I forgot the brother who played that. He had the locks, and I always forget his name. He played in Crossroads and a bunch of other movies. That movie,
mhm.
me and my dad hit me to that movie when I was a kid,
My father
around in the
hit me to
80s.
that movie. He took me to that movie. He took me specifically because she was in it. And it
Man,
was more a matter of, hey, study these are your teachers doing this, so let's go study your teachers. And he
wow.
really didn't like that movie. And I understand why, to a certain degree, for him. It was a B movie. Um, but it was a movie, you know, and people judge these things how they judge these things because in reality, at the end of the day, all art is subjective. Um, More so music than film, but it's all subjective at the end of the day. Um, but I loved it because there was so few movies, and today it's still the case that expand their depiction of us and how we can be seen even to ourselves.
Yeah,
Right?
it's very avant-garde movie.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of how that ended up with theater, and um I think I was doing that, I guess, well into a lot less in my 20s and 30s, but still quite a bit. I did a couple of off-Broadway plays with some folks that I went to college with when I went to Marymount Manhattan College, which is basically a college full of actors, even though I majored in music theory and political science while I was there. Because for
Wow.
some reason, I never thought it was useful or smart. No offense to anybody who might have an art degree or whatever, but I just didn't think it was useful to get a degree in the arts, stuff that, number one, I was already doing. Um, and I think, at least I thought, and I think I still have this attitude to a little bit of a degree. I always thought that a degree in the arts was a perfect path to teaching, which is not a
Huh.
bad thing. I just had no interest in being a teacher of this stuff. I had and still have a desire to be a performer or a producer of it, but not necessarily teach. Um, that's changed a bit. I've had, interns on and off over the years. They don't last long. The interns, I guess. But yeah, I'm definitely probably still not mature enough to really be one that wants to spend my time teaching this stuff. I'd much rather be playing with the toys than showing somebody else how to work it.
Man, I totally understand that as a performer too. Even though I do teach, I love, like working with the kids that I do, our whole collective and stuff. But I do understand as a performer too, like even if you're digging that, you got to have an outlet. And granted, the stuff that I work with, cats, we're pretty much performing and improvising or whatnot. But it's just when you're doing that full time, it's even better, like as far as like as an artist, and but I totally understand what you mean, man. Like, here's segueing to this. So what got you into music? Like what got you into like first of all, what music did you come up with and what got you into playing music?
What music did I come up with? Well, I guess it depends on when that started. So I'll tell a bit of a story because I was told this story. Now, I was told this story by my parents, and I don't care what anybody says. Parents fucking lie to their children.
Comedy.
Now, I don't think that they told me this and it was a lie, but I do know that I've discovered some things where they weren't necessarily accurate over my years. But I think that this may have been accurate. So my father was a insane jazz head, insane jazz fan. And, I'm born in 1970.
Rock on 70s babies. I'm one too.
which is not a boomer, people.
No, it's not.
Straight.
People,
go read a book.
We are not boomers.
Educated American sucker ass fucking
Generation X, homie.
Generation. So,
I'm sorry.
so my father would tell me about how when I was a baby in the womb, he would play music. I guess literally, I don't know if I'm sure headphones existed, but how they did that, I don't know. So I'm guessing he's aiming fucking speakers at my mother, and I think I still have his old speakers, big ass fucking Marantz speakers and shit. I keep them in the doorway of the studio. People walk in, they see it, they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so impressive." I'm like, "When this shit's plugged up, it's just a fucking. I just need some place to keep this shit. I'm not trying to impress you. I mean, thank you, but it's just there's no space here. It's just fucking New York City." So apparently he did that, and after I was born, he would lay me down in front of the speakers. So he would say, and he, played jazz, and he was always, when you're a little kid, you listen to what your parents listen to, and I can tell you, I hated jazz until I was 20 years old. I fucking hated it. And, I think it was just because of the style of jazz that I was hearing. It wasn't necessarily.
What style? I'm curious.
Itself. I know my father liked a lot of bebop, but I don't think I heard him play a lot of bebop.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask if it was just regular swing or just cool jazz. I love bebop.
I think I heard more of that than I probably should have, because I actually fucking love bebop.
Yeah, bebop is punk rock.
When I was 20 years old, I heard something on WBGO, which, if you're not in New York, that's a long-time public jazz station that's actually not in New York. It's based in Newark, New Jersey. But we get it here, and it broadcasts in New York City. And aside from there's only two real jazz stations in New York City, and that's WKCR, which is public radio, and Columbia University, which, when you think about it, is really fucked up. In New York City, the largest media market on the so-called western side of the planet, and the only broadcast radio for jazz is a college station, a private college station at that fucking Ivy League, and an NPR station. That's fucking horrible,
man.
Even though I got to give props to both those stations, and got to give props to Columbia University Radio, because if not for them, nobody would have had Stretch and Bobbito, and there was a whole bunch of hip hop from the middle of the night that would have never grown into the mainstream. So, got to give props for that. But yeah, I at 20 years old, I heard something from BGO that I think was something by Coltrane, and I fucking loved it. It was literally in that moment. And I love jazz. Now, I didn't love it enough to fucking get into studying it. But I didn't hate it anymore, I'd say that much. So my father was into that, and that was damn near strictly jazz. My mother and I used to often take, you can't really call it a road trip because it's intra-city, but if you're not in New York City, people don't realize how large New York City is. As spread out as LA is, New York City is larger by area, right? But it's a lot more dense, right? Buildings go up, buildings are right next to each other. I mean, I have a whole building here. I have a brownstone here, right? But not, I'm inside my building. I'm on the ground floor. The studio is 2 floors. Um, so I'm in the control room right now. But I'll give you a quick little. And I'm doing this just for the sake of, point of view. So this control room is relatively small. It's actually imperfect as far as a place to mix, but I know how to mix out of it. This is all rebuilt from a fire that we had in 2011. The whole studio space and the whole deal redesigned. I can get into the specifics and all that sort of stuff if anybody gives a fuck. You probably don't, which is, for the sake of this conversation, is probably good. But we can always get on my Twitch channel, and if you really want to ask me all these, detailed gear things or whatever, we can get into it. So on the other side of that glass, on the other side of that sound treatment, there's, well, I won't tell you what's behind that wall, because there's that wall is sort of a secret, to be honest with you. Like, no shit. It's a real wall, but there's something that's purposely been put inside that wall that one day I'll rip that wall apart and take it out. But I won't say what that is.
Wow.
So not 3 feet behind that wall is the brick edge of this building, and right up against it is the next fucking building. I know that by itself does not sound necessarily crazy, right? But that's a whole nother brownstone, and that's how tight, things are in New York City, and it's nowhere near as tight as things are in Tokyo. But that's where we're going with all this shit eventually, right?
Man.
So 2 reasons I'm mentioning this part is that, number one, you interact with everybody else's shit, even when you don't want to, don't mean to, right? So you end up absorbing other people's stuff, what they're into, what they don't necessarily want known. It's not that you necessarily hear something through the walls, but every once in a blue moon you hear something through the walls. It might be music. It could be the fucking sounds of passion. It could be the sounds of murder.
He said sounds of passion.
Right?
Oh, man.
Funny, but these are not jokes. I'm telling you real shit. And so these are things and sounds that affect you, that shape you, that absorb, and just, whatever. So as dense as it is, it's still a decent distance between where I am in Bed-Stuy and, let's say, Harlem, right? Harlem, which is a neighborhood in Manhattan, which is in northern Manhattan, right? So I got an aunt up in Harlem. She's actually a great aunt, so she's my mother's aunt, but my mother's actually a couple of months older than her. So we actually would drive up there to go see her and the whole deal. So my mother had one of the most explosive cars ever made, and I do mean explosive. I mean as in blowing the fuck up. A Datsun B210 GX hatchback. Thankfully, it never blew up on us. But
that's so 80s.
Datsun, just so y'all know, Datsun is now known as Nissan.
Nissan, yep. I remember a Datsun.
Actually, it was known as Nissan back then, but not in the United States, right? But Nissan is who they really are. So watch those fucking Nissans. Don't get hit in the back, Jack.
Lord have mercy.
So often on this drive, she's playing what she's playing, and my mother would listen to a lot of R&B, a lot of pop, basically on the radio, listen to Kiss FM, listen to BLS, Frankie Crocker on the radio and the whole shit or whatever, or Ken Webb, because back in the day when people talked about DJs, what you originally were talking about were radio DJs, right? And they actually had, well, I'm sure they still have some, relativistic levels of fame and attention nowadays, but not like back then, right? That the positions they held back then and stuff like that were really insane as far as a culture thing. Um, and so that was the music that really kind of I absorbed. Um, and I say absorbed. I don't want to say liked or disliked per se. I dislike jazz for whatever reason, but I definitely was absorbing it. I liked my mother's music a bit more, but I think like is a strong word, to be honest with you. I didn't dislike it, but I think I always had a really strong sense of self, even as a very young child. And so I realized that I wasn't making these choices. You know, I was experiencing the choices that they made, and I got very used to it, and I expected to hear it. When I started making my own choices, um, other than stealing their records, I have a record here, and it's vinyl that's actually stolen from one of my parents. It's stolen from my mother. I mean, and technically, when you're a kid, you're not really stealing, but it is stealing. Let's just right. And but I'll show it to you, and I keep it here in the control room. I have all these records in here because they keep an eye on me and my work, right? They're literally about focusing me on it. It's not a matter of the genre. It's a matter of what kind of products they are. So I can't be that close.
They're basically like your icons, right? Like icons. And then Donna, I see Donna Summers. I saw Suicidal and Prince. That's really cool.
Suicide there.
That's the best album.
The order is very important, actually. So them, Brains, Public Enemy,
yes,
Rush,
Public Enemy.
Lee Scratch.
Oh man, you got a bunch of my favorite albums.
Lee Scratch is right next to Black Flag. But Black Flag is right next to DMC.
Man.
Then there's a poster from one of the early Shrine shows at CBGB's.
Right on.
But then there's, I don't know if people remember this one, John Lennon's last album.
Wow.
Right. I wasn't going to get into this, but there's a Metallica import from Germany. Vinyl's printed right on. Misfits. Most of these things are like special colored vinyl.
Man,
most of these things have never been touched and never been played. The Donna Summer's been played way too fucking much. So was the Suicidal Tendencies. The Miles has never been touched. The Bad Brains played too much. The Public Enemy probably never been touched. The Rush, too much. Blue Spec Curry, too much. The Black Flag, the Run DMC's never been touched.
Who was next to the Run DMC? Who was next to Run DMC?
Black Flag.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Next to Black Flag
and Dead Kennedys.
Oh, the one above Dead Kennedys. I love that album, by the way.
That's
the one
that's above Dead Kennedys.
Oh wow, that is him. I was like, man, I never saw that. That's crazy. I saw him live once, man.
Over here we got Gorilla Biscuits.
Yes.
Then there's Michael.
Oh heck yeah.
The Cure.
Yes.
But then there's the Beatles Revolver, never been touched.
Great album.
BDP. That's been touched too much. And these two, believe it or not, people don't understand. These two go together. The first fucking Slayer album, and ironically, I was talking about that with a really wonderfully sweet Catholic girl yesterday, explaining fucking Slayer to her.
Well, shoot, their drummer isn't Tom Araya and their drummer are Catholic. That's the irony of that too. Tom Araya and Dave Lombardo.
Catholics are fucking Satanists. Don't let it get twisted. They just fucking lying to themselves. And of course, I meant MF Doom.
Man,
and you know what? It's so funny that these two they do go together. Strangely enough. Oh, EPMD.
Heck.
Right next to Death.
Yes.
And right under Prince. Right. And it kind of ends with Prince. But the Donna Summer is it's not that these individuals are icons, which they are, but it's because they made something iconic, right? But there's another side of the reality to that. Um, except for maybe a small handful of all these artists, um, very few of them were actually, they were the performers, they're the artists, their sounds and what they did in the performances make a huge difference. But there's the other side, there's the art on top of the art. And that's the mixing and the engineering and all the other stuff that goes along with what making a record is, right? So we're in a day and age nowadays where a solo artist can be an actual solo artist. That's not where any of the era of these things came from, and there's drawbacks to that and there's benefits to that, obviously. But I keep them not so because I have other albums, I have other things, I have things that to a certain degree I love a lot more and would listen to a lot more. But these particular products are here because of the specialness to me of their sound, of what they are as a product, not just the music performance. The music performance is a huge part of it, but it's not the entirety of it whatsoever. It's not Miles Davis solely because it's Miles Davis and he's got like this amazing performance. It's Miles Davis because his amazing performance was captured and mixed and produced and mastered in a certain kind of way that really brought out everything that he did in a way that people can appreciate the end product. They don't necessarily appreciate everything that went into it.
What I was meaning as far as even, oh, my bad, sorry.
No, it's all good. No, you're right on point. Actually, it's just but that's the reasoning behind a lot of that and a lot of what brought me into, I guess, where I am and where it's centered from to a certain degree. And it's very much an extension of that whole thing I was saying about my mother, and not just my mother, but my parents, and the difference between when you absorb things as a child versus when you start making your own choices, right? About what it is you're absorbing, right? And how
something
those things affect
your own thing.
Right.
Man.
Because early on as a kid, I started listening to WNBC and Howard Stern before he was famous. And that's when a lot of and that's when a lot of to a certain degree, the more rock, wild stuff like that. Actually, it didn't start with Howard Stern. It started with Don Imus.
Oh, that guy too, man. Two crazy people.
Well, here's the thing: before they, said the stupid shit that they said that really kind of exposed who they were, they said a lot of really fucking funny, hilarious shit. Especially when you're trying to get ready to go to work or go to school, and so that's the kind of thing that will pull you in, right? And I have to say about Don Imus, when he said the dumb, ignorant, racist, fucked up shit that he said, he was already at a point in his life and career where his brain was fucking fried. I'm not saying that he didn't say those things or have that attitude the entire time. He probably fucking did. But what I am saying is that his brain and his body were at a point where he wouldn't be able to hide that any longer.
Man.
Right? So because that's part of what happens. One thing I know I learned about old age, not because I'm old, but because I'm actually, relative to my family, I'm very young. And so I've had a lot of older people in my family. I've seen a lot of passing and stuff like that. And I see what happens to humans as they get older.
Yeah.
Some of the crazy shit that they say and their attitudes and how it changes. And to a small degree, I guess, you can't blame them. Somebody gets to live 82 years old in this water sack, whatever, especially, in this place of the so-called United States. And at some point, you're probably going to say, you know what? You fuck the fucking shit. Get over
All the
it.
filters are gone.
Right. So, yeah, somebody said some fucked up shit. Yeah, they probably fucking did. Yeah, I'm sure I say some fucked up shit too.
So how did you get into rock and roll, man?
That's how. That's the beginning of it, right? To a certain degree. In a very, very kind of, I guess, mistakenly milk bread, kind of like milk toast kind of way as a young child. And I wasn't detracted from it at all.
Oh.
I mean, now at the same time, hip hop was being birthed. At the same time, I'm still surrounded by jazz, whether I like it or not. At the same time, I got salsa merengue from, like neighbors and stuff like that. At the same time, I got reggae, and I got, that stuff because of neighbors, because it's New York City, it's Brooklyn. And so I got all this stuff around me. Plus, I spent a lot of time in Bay Ridge. I have Italian blood relatives right here in New York. My father, born and raised in Brooklyn, but he did a lot of growing up in Staten Island. And he'd have to listen. He'd have to fight his way to home or to school every fucking day.
Man,
it was gonna be a fucking fight. Those motherfuckers are gonna leave us alone, or they're gonna fucking bleed, or we're gonna bleed. But we going to school, and fuck those motherfuckers. We gonna fight. We gonna fight.
Man.
But there's a reality to what was said in the Matrix. You don't know anybody until you fight them. And
that's a whole quote.
So, my father grew up having fights with the Italian kids every fucking day. Now we got Italians in our family. Check that out.
That's a trip. That is a trip.
You know what? It's not really a trip, actually. It's not. The skin game fucks up a lot of minds in the world. It really does. And it is what it is. And unfortunately, we're all in it, whether you want to be in it or not. Now, we can all deal in better ways, worse ways, smarter ways, dumber ways. Some of that's a matter of education, some of it's a matter of experience, some of it's a matter of environment, some of it's just a matter of just choosing to try and do something different and feel your way through it. But especially in the arts, so much of that game of skin fucks up so many people in so many ways. I mean, there's a reality that we have to deal with, because we have to deal with people's perceptions, understandings, misgivings, because we have to deal with people, right?
Yeah.
But black is not an anthropological, chain. White is not an anthropological chain. Italian is not an anthropological chain. Russian or Kenyan or Chinese that's not what these things are. These are clubs. These are, extended families. Israel is a family name. That's what it is, right? Changed from Jacob, right? It's got nothing to do with Judaism, and we know that we know, right? So we'll stick to David Chappelle's rules when it comes to that shit. So that's the thing, and we can't let the dumb shit of the game fuck us up and remove us from the real things and the good things that exist in humanity. And it reaches into, how I got into the things that I've gotten into, even though, and it's kind of strange. I give you an example. I did a gig at we did a in Shrine for the Black Madonna. We played CB's one particular day. We played with Stiff. So Stiff, for people that don't know, at the time was headed by Santi White, or Santi Gold, as some
Fancy
people
gold,
might
right?
know, and and
Yeah.
and Chuck Treese. I think Honey Child Coleman was on that show as well. And it was probably the only show that my Bay Ridge side of my family, Brooklyn's big place, but that's where you, the Italians in my family are. We own family owns a bait and tackle shop out in Bay Ridge to this day. It's bait and fishing and Heineken's. That's still what they do. And so they came. I invited them to the show. They actually came to CBGB's. I'll never forget. I got um, sort of a sort of a half brother. And he's also a Scorpio. We're both around the same time, the same age. I'll never forget. He walked up to me. Now we're at CBGB's now, right? And he's from Brooklyn, but he don't hang out on the Lower East Side, even though it's all one city. But this is like, and he comes. I'll never forget. He comes up to me and says, "Hey, yo, Jay, let me ask you something." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he's like, you hang out here a lot? You around these people all the time?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I play gigs here. I do things here. I've done, I was like, yeah, this. It's like this is some strange fucking people here. This is really fucking weird." All I could do was just nod like, yeah, you ain't wrong. So
That's so funny.
I start rambling, let me just ask my question. I'm sure I've been rambling for a minute.
Man, stuff is hilarious though, man. I think what I was tripping off of is just how like cats will have to go through cats end up going through certain things just because of things like, of course we're dealing, with what you're talking about with your dad. It's like, it's just kind of wrench that even happened. So I was like kind of tripping off of that. And I mean, being Black American, we've heard a lot of stories like, I mean, my mom and dad are from the South, and I mean, they grew up out here in California, but they faced Jim Crow there, but they faced it here when they came here too in Cali. People don't really know that Cali was like that as well. So it's just a trip how certain things go down, and just because of just some ridiculous setup on like kind of like disgusting rule that somebody has because of the way a person looks. So that's what I was tripping off of. The other question that I wanted to ask is like, so especially being from New York City and all that, being from Brooklyn, how did you get into punk rock specifically? Because I mean, it's a trip. Just I got into it through Flipside Video and Rodney on the Rock out here and Thrasher magazine. So there's a few things, but as far as like just when did you get into that stuff, and like how was it back when you got into it, and like what attracted you to something that was probably a bit more extreme than most mainstream music? Just curious about that.
It's really funny. It never hit me as extreme. It's really interesting, especially, and I think you and I have talked about this, and in the original Afro punk community, we had discussions about this to a certain degree, right? Because there's people's understanding of punk that is more attached to music and fashion. And then there's an understanding of punk that I think is more about, at least from my experience and the experience of a lot of people that I came up with, is more about circumstance than anything else. So coming up, by the time I got into high school and junior high school and high school, but high school in particular, I was definitely listening to a lot of hip hop and a lot of rock. For lack of a better term, I actually hate the fucking term rock, to be honest with you, because I don't think it's really properly descriptive. I think it kind of gives a sense of a particular style or thing or whatever, and I think it's like a lot of things, like a lot of genres, and the entire notion of genres of music is actually born of a really racist mentality in and of itself. But that's a whole other fucking story. But let's say stuff that wasn't necessarily what people would assume that young black people were into, even though all this shit belongs to us and is from us and is in our bloodline. It is what it is, right?
Yep.
So by the time I got into high school as a freshman, I was definitely listening to, I want to say fucking Def Leppard. I definitely want to say Billy Joel. I'm in New York. You listen, you hear Billy Joel.
Dig Billy Joel.
Yeah,
He's
I mean,
awesome.
listen, can't take nothing away from him. I actually met him once when I was a kid. I won't get into the whole garden story, but I actually met him and Christy Brinkley.
Oh, no way.
When I was like 16 years old. Didn't realize how fucking short he was until I met him. You know, it wasn't that I got into them as personalities. I heard the music and I loved the fucking music. You know, it was much more about their product than it was about them as icons or images or anything like that. And I think one of the blessings of back in the day, especially being at the age I was at, was that you would hear this stuff on the radio, but you wouldn't necessarily see them. And I wasn't really at an age where I was going to concerts initially at that point. And again, when I met Billy Joel, I was 16. I was at the Garden. I was barely legal to work, and my parents didn't even know I had the job. You know, I was just hustling because like I said to myself, 16 years old, I'm still in school, but I'm trying to get my own shit. I'm trying to fucking be on it. And, that gave me opportunity to actually see what some of these cats actually look like. And this is just as MTV was beginning, right? So now there's a visual sense. But, before that, I think it would have been Michael Jackson. Love the Jacksons, but also, their visual was because they had a TV show, right? Which most artists did not have, right? You had to be huge to have your own TV show, right? And I guess there was a few more that had their own little variety shows and stuff like that, but the Jacksons were a huge thing, obviously. So high school, I'm listening to that. I'm listening to Def Leppard. Whatever little things that are starting to kind of lean toward the metal thing. I think to a certain degree it was a matter of speed in the sound. It was probably a matter as well of being exposed to more people. I went to Brooklyn Tech, one of the top 10 public high schools in the country, but we also had 5,000 students in Brooklyn Tech, from all over the 5 boroughs of the city. So you're going to definitely be exposed to some shit.
Wow.
Right? That's and should be. I mean, that's a good thing, So how I got into punk is very specific. I had a friend, still have a friend, but at the time, I don't know if I should say his name. Yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna say his name. I'll do it. If he gets stalked for it, well, whatever, he can handle himself. My man Lester Salvador, never forget. Sophomore year, 15 years later, he's like, yo, Jay, yo, man, you ever heard this? I was like, what is it? He's like, check this out. It gives me a tape, and it's the Dead Kennedys, and it's California Uber Alice. And it was that, and I listened to that and was like, what the fuck? And what really caught me more than anything else, because as I never thought of the Dead Kennedys as really wild or hard or extreme. What caught me was the political edge of it. Because there are things about that really, really, really rang true. And that had to be something that came right out of my bloodline, of my DNA. Because I can't say that I was necessarily focused or overtly living in a way that brought a lot of those very real world issues into my frame of reference, especially at 14, 15 years old. But my father was, a Panther. He went to Vietnam War. He came back, and he was kind of, I don't want to say forced to go into war, but he got in some trouble when he was a kid, and he got left with one of those choices they used to put in front of people, especially people of color, jail or this. And so he chose this. He like a lot of us when we're young, black people in particular, but at least back then, he had a little bit of a patriotic streak, and he wasn't afraid of anything. He was fighting every day, going back and forth to school, whatever, right? So he was like, "Yeah, go to war, join up, whatever the fuck, I'll go." And he went, and he learned a lot. He learned a lot. He learned about his compatriots, supposedly, and how they are, especially in crisis situations. He learned about other cultures, and I know that he would tell me of so many stories of his time in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. And one of the things that he expressed on a regular basis is that I could never understand why we were at war with these people. This was a beautiful place and beautiful people. So it make no sense to me why we're at war with them. And of course he was, a soldier, so he wouldn't necessarily know, but and he was there very early on. A lot of people don't realize that the whole Vietnam conflict thing started, well, let's put it this way. United States had soldiers there in 1959, 1960.
Wow.
Because my father was one of them. That's
Sheesh.
when he was there. So yeah, not 65 or 67 or 68. It was that early. And before them was the French. So go figure. And a big part of what they were doing there, of course, we've come to find out, that was all about the rubber, right? So whatever those impetus, whatever impetus he got from that, on top of realizing some realities about this country's attitude, beyond just his neighborhood issues, right? But being in the military and dealing with people that you're supposed to rely on, they're supposed to rely on you, and seeing that those racial conflicts got transferred, 7,000 miles away into a fucking war zone where these things shouldn't really exist, but they do, and that changed a lot in him. I think for the better at the end of the day. So there's a lot of things that he would discuss with me, but what he would discuss with me weren't the political things so much. He would just kind of give his day-to-day realities about what that experience was like for him. But almost like, it was almost like if you ever read The Losers, which is the book that they based some of the HBO TV series on when it came to their Vietnam stories and stuff like that, or even the comic book The Losers, because that was actually based on a real book.
Man,
and so it wasn't necessarily partisan or political, right? It's just like, this is what we did, this is how we ate, this guy was a good guy, and this is why, this guy was a bad guy, and this is why, and this is what the interaction was. But, it wasn't necessarily based on white or black or Republican or Democrat or this or that or whatever. And so my father came back into the States in New York and was looking for work and stuff like that or whatever, especially with the experience that he had. I won't get into all the things that he did right now, just how it relates to, I guess, me jumping into the dead Kennedys. He ended up working for a Panther organization right here in Bed-Stuy that actually, ironically, had offices right down the street from where I'm at right now. a place called
Wow.
Youth in Action, um,
Mm.
because he looked for organizations that were really about um, giving a hand up to people, you know, on the street, for lack of a better term, you know, um,
Mm.
finding them jobs, helping them out with family situations when they needed it. And Youth in Action was a Panther organization, and that was, what they did. They were well known for it, actually, for as long as they lasted. So now that's my father's side. So my mother, actually born and raised in Tuskegee, Alabama. Her side of the family still have homestead in Tuskegee. Um, I got shipped there for summers. I don't want to say I couldn't stand Tuskegee, but I couldn't stand Tuskegee.
My dad's from Alabama, by the way, too. That's another thing we got in common.
Say
But
word.
he's from Birmingham, though.
Oh, see, I got family from Birmingham, so you might be
That's
speaking
crazy,
related
man.
there. So she's in Tuskegee. Her and my aunt and stuff like that. Lionel Richie and them were classmates.
Man,
Stuff like that. Tuskegee's got a Commodore Square because the Commodores are all from where Tuskegee, right?
that's a
Um,
trip.
Tuskegee Institute is literally right behind our house, and my grandfather actually got into a fight, not a physical fight, with the chancellor of Tuskegee Institute because of a number of trees behind the house that separate our house and the campus. And I was always told don't go on those trees because there's a bunch of snakes, so I never did. Um, but apparently, the chancellor of Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University, I guess said to my grandfather he should cut those trees down. My grandfather was a Navy man. He didn't take shorts from no fucking body. Nobody, nobody. And he told him what he could do with the axe and those motherfucking trees. On both sides of my family, let's put it this way: I'm the product of two black families that did not believe in protesting.
I understand what you mean by that. Man.
I'll say it outright. They believed in shooting motherfuckers. They did not. My father is from Brooklyn. His father was from Brooklyn. His father was in Brooklyn by way of Hampton, Virginia. And it seems from what we were able to trace that they may be some of the black people who were part of a riot or a revolt at a fort that I can't think of the top of my head, who then ran to Hampton, Virginia to hide out in another fort, and got some protection, and that's how they survived and the whole deal or whatever. And my father's side of the family, Foles, is derivative of a larger clan called Fields out of Virginia. And they will trace that back to the ancestor who was brought over from Africa as a slave.
Wow.
My mother's side of the family, the Scots, I don't know if there's ever been as deep a dive into that, but what I do know are my great grandparents and great great grandparents, including the one whose house this was, who was born in Quitman, Georgia, who was part Seminole and part Cherokee.
That's another thing we got in common. I got some of those roots too.
But here's also the reality of, um, our African interconnected heritage with Native Americans, right? Um, she may have been raped. I don't have any specifics on that. And she may not have ever been allowed to be part of the tribe, but
unfortunately,
she was definitely part of the tribe, right?
Yeah, a lot of them blacklisted a lot of the black ones from there, and they're still doing that now. They recently kicked. Well, I don't mean to go off on that, but yeah.
No, right. She was not enslaved by the tribe, though. She was born in 1905, so she was not a slave of the tribe. But now whether her parents may have been, even though they definitely had interactions with the tribe, that's my great great grandfather Elder Scott and my great great grandmother Gussie Scott. I don't know the specifics of those, but that's also where I think the more of the Cherokee relationship comes from. But my great grandmother had the Seminole relationship. Um, and her son, who eventually was my grandfather, who eventually got the Tuskegee from Quitman, Georgia, coming up from Florida and all that. That's all Seminole country and the whole
South
deal or whatever.
Carolina too. Yep.
Had my mother and the whole deal in Tuskegee, and my mother became a social worker. Came to New York, decided she was gonna be, you gonna make it after all. And came to New York City to do her thing. And that's what it was. And so, in some ways, very political, right? My mother, not so much overtly political, but her work is obviously very political, right?
Man.
My father was overtly political, but eventually his work became even more political down the line because eventually he ended up retiring from the New York State Department of Human Rights.
Wow.
And so all of that kind of exists in my DNA. I can't say that I'm not a social worker, but I've definitely read a lot of the books and absorbed a lot of my mother's experience and stuff like that. She spent 31 years taking care of the children of the city of New York, and she just literally the other day got awarded for 20 years taking care of the veterans of the United States. So she's not for the Veterans Mission. My mother's 82 years old. She's still working.
Wow.
So that sort of stuff, I think, is what literally drove me. I know it's a long fucking answer, right? Sorry, people.
Nah, it's cool. We're all listening.
But I think that is what drove me towards punk to a certain degree, and what's really in it that really pulled me in. I think to this day, kind of still pulls me in. It's not a matter of fashion. It's not a matter of iconography of the artist per se, especially if they don't have anything pertinent to say, or if they're just spitting nihilism for the sake of nihilism. That never interested me. I never gave a fuck.
Yeah,
especially
I don't like that either.
like I said, so much of the circumstance that I really dealt with when it came to people who really overtly call themselves punk in New York City were homeless, drugged out, disenfranchised people. And a lot of them, unfortunately, had nothing else to rely on except to make music, which is part of why the music sounded the way it sounded. These were not people who had any particular experience or training in music theory. And I'm not saying that to knock them, not at all, because what they're making is artful and real and full of heart. But it was also their way of sending a message to say, hey, our existence is really fucked up. We're not really doing this for fashion. We're doing this for fucking survival, yo. And some of us are not going to fucking survive this. And some of them did not,
Wow.
Joey Ramone is an excellent fucking example, Yeah, these are not the only ones. That's not punk isn't the only place that kind of stuff exists, unfortunately, right? And I think that by the grace of God, to a certain degree, I'm blessed that the ones that were initially introduced to me, there was something a bit more to what they were doing and why they were doing it, as far as the Dead Kennedys, for example, and that whole situation with what was happening in San Francisco and Jello Biafra and the court situation and the cops and the whole deal. And then I think it was maybe a week after that, after I listened to that tape and brought it back to Lester, blown away by that shit. And I think at that time I was I getting into hardcore? No, not really, kind of wasn't. It was literally all started with that situation and my man Lester South. And the next week he brought me 2 more tapes. He brought me Bad Brains, Eye Against Eye. Not the Raw tape. He brought me Eye Against Eye. I think it had just come out. And we're talking about 1985. 86 the latest. I'm sure it was 85. And a demo tape, like a regular cassette tape that somebody had written on, and the whole deal. And it said Raw Deal, a band that later on became known as The Killing Time. But I still call them Raw Deal. And that at the time, as great as the Bad Brains were, I fucking loved that, because that was more of like, that was much more personal, the Bad Brains stuff, all of it, and the fact that there was an actual godly connection to what they were doing, but it wasn't Christian minded, and it wasn't fall on your knees minded. It was like, I'm gonna kick you in the face with these fucking boots, and my God's gonna give me the power to fucking do so, and to stomp that fucking head out if I got to, because I'm not taking this shit.
It's like Demarc Basie and punk rock. Demarc Basie or David Walker.
Much more real Old Testament kind of shit.
Exactly.
But Raw Deal was something else. Raw Deal, man, it was funky. And I mean funky. I mean New York City funky. I mean, it had real fucking rhythm to it. But it was thick. And it was, it was angry in a very different way. And I think what I didn't realize at the time was that these 3 artists were literally, and I don't mean to leave out Detroit, but there's a real reality to United States punk and hardcore, and unfortunately, Detroit gets skipped over because it's a primarily black city. And remember, the Bad Brains didn't, as much love as they initially had in DC, that love turned on them, and they didn't really get their proper airs until they came to New York. But there's something very specific about the realities of San Francisco and DC and New York City, right? This stuff exists in ways that are very, very specific in those locales, sonically, artistically, politically, and emotionally. And Raw Deal had an emotion to their stuff that was extremely personal. It was very one-on-one relationship kind of stuff that they were writing about. It wasn't a large. The writing wasn't. It didn't come across as this large, overarching issue of some evil, right? With the dead Kennedys, it's the larger government establishment and the cops. With Bad Brains, it's the thing that unites us all, but at the same time tries to rip us apart, and the whole deal, and the larger esoteric nature of the power of evil that we live under, guided by the hand of God to keep us all together. And if we just focus on that, that's what's up. Raw Deal was like, yo, you fucked me up. You fucked me up. I'm fucking letting you know that you fucked me up. And the next time I fucking see you, it might be some shit. And I don't have a fucking problem with that.
Wow.
But the way it was done was, it was sublimely beautiful in its rage. And it was to a certain degree, it's where I think hip hop and black people would really go if we felt comfortable enough to truly release our righteous anger. Bad Brains is some part of that, but
Yeah.
something like what Raw Deal was, it's very different. It's more like, yo, you did this to me. I can sing about it. I'm going to sing about it. But what I'm also going to sing about is how the way I'm going to overcome this is I'm not going to look for you, but if I come across you, I'm going to fucking destroy you.
Man, that's a trip.
And I don't really feel two ways about it. But let me give you what my reason is. And let me let you know that there is this wall of hate. And yo, no more Mr. Nice Guy. And those are all song titles, but it's very real. And I think a couple of weeks later, a boy of mine who was the boyfriend of my best homegirl said, "Yo, come on, I'm going to this show." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yo, I'm going to, come on, you want to go to this matinee?" And I was like, "Word!" Like, and we went to the CB's matinee. And
that's dope.
I think we were both just too young to be in there, but we got away with a lot of shit like that in New York City. I mean, there wasn't a place that we couldn't fucking go, even though we were only like 15, fucking 16 years old. And I think part of it was blessed because we didn't really look it. We were, tall, big dudes, but we also had a way of handling ourselves. Well, I just mean just to just the way we carry ourselves. I don't mean like, anything overt other than just
no,
not
I get what
being
you're
crazy,
saying.
not running
I
our
get
mouths.
it.
Right. And I think, because the bouncers will let you know, yo, what the fuck, man, you gotta tighten your shit up or you fucking out of here. But the bouncers will let you hang as long as you didn't fucking fuck up, right? And let people do something that made it seem like that, hey, you're a fucking teenager, you're not supposed to fucking be here. Not just at CB's, but at a whole bunch of places. But ironically, Raw Deal was playing. I saw Raw Deal. I saw Underdog. I think I saw Warzone with Rabies.
Man,
and that
rest in peace to
was,
Rabies.
Yeah, rest in peace to Rabies. And that was like 1985.
Man.
And after that, I don't think I left CBGB's until a few months before they closed.
Wow.
I put on shows there. I played there. Louise from CBGB's wrote the letter for me that allowed me to get into ASCAP. At the time, you couldn't just get into number one. None of those things were free. You couldn't get into just ASCAP for free. You couldn't get in there just being a musician. You had to actually be on either a major label recording, or you had to be on an indie label recording. But what an indie label was back then was a label that might be independent but had to have distribution through a major label or a major distributor. Or you had to have performed live in an ASCAP licensed venue. And my first band, Gamify Acme, did just that, and Louise had no problem. She just she'd write me a letter, and she's like, "Here you go. When are you guys playing? You guys coming back?" We're like, "Yeah, we're fucking come back." Only people that fucking actually paid people to play. We're fucking definitely coming back. You fucking kidding me? And God love Hilly and Louise, because even if on nights when we didn't have nobody in there, we still got fucking paid.
That's dope. Speaking of, what was the first? I was gonna ask you what was the first band that you played in. Even though we talked about it, I just wanted to kind of get that and that, and also how Shrine for the Black Madonna came formed, and basically the one band that you mentioned, was that your very first band that you were in?
Gamify Acme.
I like that name.
my stories
reminds me of the cartoons.
All my stories are long.
Hey, that's why we're here.
Listen, they're fucking worth it. Gamma Phi Acme was not the original name of the band. The original name of the band was FCOJ, Frozen Concentrated Orange Juice. No shit.
Man, I remember I used to love that.
The band was born out of a grift, actually, like literally. So first off, if you want to hear what Gamma Phi Acme sounds like, you can go on Spotify right now. Back in July, we released a 30th anniversary thingy of songs that we recorded from back then. So if you're listening, I see there's a number of people that are still here. I don't know if they're falling asleep and just said, let's let it run. Let's just let Jared and Orlando get some play. I'm fucking because I know motherfuckers are old and doing shit, so whatever. But if you're paying attention, please wake up and go buy a Gamma Phi Acme record on just not DistroKid, on Bandcamp, or go spin some on Spotify or Apple or YouTube.
I gotta look that
please
up.
Because I will break in your fucking house, steal your electricity, and I will see if you got like some cornbread that you made. And if it ain't good, I will talk about you on social media if you got some dry ass cornbread. Don't put no pieces of corn in your cornbread. That's some bullshit. I don't know why motherfuckers do that shit.
That's not good. I'm like, I think the first time and last time I tried that, nobody in my family did that. We don't do that. I don't know. I'm like, how do you do corn and cornbread?
It's just like hell.
Like, what's that?
What is that's like putting water in your corn?
Yeah,
like,
it is.
That shit, like,
that's nasty. Corn in your cornbread. That's so corny.
So, Gamma Phi Acme. It literally started as a grift. I was at Marymount, Manhattan. I want to use the names of the other players. If you pick up the albums, you'll learn people's names. But I was at Marymount at the time. So technically it was my junior year of college because I transferred into Marymount. Sort of transfer. I didn't really transfer. I went from downtown to uptown and paid these people my fucking money, and took their tests and got into fucking to change schools. So that's what it is. Met a dude who we realized that number one, we're in a college where the ratio of women to men is like 45 to 1. Number one. And we're a handful of the black people here because there's very few of us in a school that is really that the essence of the school is acting. And me being a lifelong actor, didn't go there to major in acting. I went there and majored in music theory and political science, which really seems completely fucking backwards. It seems backwards to a lot of people there. But somehow that made me interesting. And most of the people there were not from New York City. And because I was one from New York City, two, I guess the way I came to the school, because like I said, transfer for me was I stopped paying tuition at one school in Lower Manhattan. And I said, fuck it, I'm going to this school. I just literally just walked in there one day and filled out an application and said, you have to take a test. I was like, fine, I'll take a fucking test. I took the test and aced the fucking test and gave them a check and said, when do classes start? And I picked my classes. And they were like, oh my goodness. And well, then next thing you know, I'm in Marymount. I'll never forget, they got, Marymount's like I started out at BMCC, which is a city college, and the whole deal or whatever. I went to Marymount's a private school, so it's a college, right? So they want to advise you on the classes you're taking. They got this nun telling me, what you want to do is this. I'm like, listen, lady, I'm paying for this. I don't have financial aid. My parents ain't paying for this. I work and I'm paying. I'm taking these classes, but this is what I want to take. Well, really, what we want you to do is like, fuck me, I don't fucking know you, son. I don't know what you want. I don't fucking listen. I don't go to Catholic church. Let me just sort of let you know right now. That's my fucking money. This is the class I'm taking. That's what's up. Thank you very much. Bye. So now I'm in there, and it turns out first night in the fucking place, they got dorms, no deal, whatever. We're hitting some parties, and why do I hook up with the five grubbiest, grimiest New York City motherfuckers and one dude from California? Actually, no, one white kid from Cali, one white kid from Long Island, and the rest of the other three of us just grubby. Just all of us were fucking grubby together.
That's hilarious.
And we were just like, yo, just instantly, yo. That was us. Oh man, the best and the worst thing that could happen in that fucking school, son. In a school full of young ladies from out of state. It's New York. And we were all a little bit older. That's also the crazy part. There was nothing freshman about us. Nothing. They should have never gave you Negroes books.
That's scandalous.
And this school had a number of clubs, like I guess schools do, right? For whatever reason, I was in the Black Students Union, so that was the club that I was in when I got into school. But of course, you can be in more than one, and these schools would have like an end of the year party. So me and one of the dudes from the crew, we would end up going to hardcore shows together. Matter of fact, there's a video on YouTube and it's the day before my 20th birthday. And it's on YouTube right now still. And it's me at a Raw Deal show, me and the eventual singer of Gamma Phi Acme, and Pete Culler, the lead singer of Sick of It All, is on stage with us in the pit. Now, we're all on stage at CB's. We're not in the band. It's just, it's like a whole crowd thing and whatever. Pete Keller's right next to us. Some of the cats from Marauder are in there. Some, brothers from DMS. I won't get into who DMS was or is or whatever. Some cats from Sharp. I think Sharp Skinheads.
Oh yeah, I know
Prejudice.
They are definitely.
So, a lot of these were, these were our folks. We go to shows, and it was just natural gravitation, so there's this video of us on this stage at this show. It was Raw Deal show. It was a great fucking show. And something about that, I think, made us. This was the impetus of us to have a discussion about starting a band. Now, I've played guitar on and off, at the time on and off, since I was 10 years old. And I don't know if I made that obvious, but, we're in a school of performers. So me and this dude, we're having a conversation amongst ourselves about starting a band. And it's funny. So neither one of us, I think, was really sure about what we wanted to do in the band or even how to start a band.
Even though you played the guitar?
I did play the guitar, but well, at least let's put it this way. I had a class when I was 10, and then when I was 11, I said, fuck that, and went back to playing baseball on a regular basis. Like, I was like in a league, a hardball league, because that was my thing. Like I said, athletics was a big part of my stuff too. And I was a very good athlete, as well as being in theater and stuff like that. And I was a good singer. But I didn't really get into, like I said, I had that impetus of playing an instrument when I was like 4 years old. I probably played a little clarinet when I was in junior high school. But I didn't have any official lessons in anything until I had that guitar class at a place called the New Muse here in Brooklyn. That was a place that had some federal funding. specifically for, you know, the black people that used to be in Bed-Stuy because they're trying to get rid of all the black people in Bed-Stuy now. And yeah, they taught us, you know, young fledgling black folk, you know, music and arts and stuff like that or whatever. At least that was the idea. So I think I took a season or 6 months of lessons, had a recital, and I wasn't interested in guitar. I absolutely was, but I was more interested in baseball, and the classes conflicted. I didn't intend to stop playing guitar. I just need to go do baseball season because it's time for baseball. So we go do this. So I still had the guitar. I always fiddled around. I didn't take other lessons. I didn't take other lessons until I was an adult. I had, Jesus, there's so much stuff. I'm trying to stay on track, but I'm gonna have to like go off track a little bit. So I was 19 years old. I got a job at the Bottom Line Club during the day. It was one of the not one of the first jobs I had out of high school. Not by the time I was 19. I got out of high school at 17. I worked a couple of jobs, including the garden, just before I left out of high school. But the Bottom Line was one of my first jobs in the music business, owned by the Pepper Brothers. Shortly after leaving that job, I got a job at UPS. So that was my first, you know, not my first, but sort of my first corporate job. And quickly got into management. So at 19 years old, I'm a manager. I'm a supervisor at UPS. Supervising people much older than me, telling them what the fuck to do. Don't go big down, just whatever. And while there, I ended up twisting my ankle.
Oh.
And I mean, I twisted it bad. I had to be in a cast for like a couple of weeks. And something said to me, you know what? This is that time to do something. Well, no, I can't even fucking walk. I'm going to do something. But yeah, so I went and bought an electric Ibanez, which eventually got stolen after a gig some years later on down the road. But I got that. I found this guitar player to give me 3 lessons. I must have been 20 years old at that point. Yeah. And I took those lessons and I went off and I just started writing music and songs. And that's, I guess, some point when him and I had that conversation, sometime shortly after that, about whether we'd start a band. And it was a matter of who wants to sing. He said, I think you should sing. I had a lot of singing experience. I could have really sung, but I really, for whatever reason, I just didn't have the desire in that moment to be the singer. So I don't know which one of us said it, but one of us said, let's flip for it. And in my mind, I did not want to be the singer. I wanted to be the guitar player. I don't think I had mentioned I had gotten the guitar or whatever. So we flipped the coin, and he won. He got to be the singer. Okay, great. So that's got a singer, got a guitar player, right? My life is crazy fucking serendipity, yo. Not 5 minutes after this moment, this little chick runs up to us and says, I don't know, you guys introduce yourself. So you guys have a band, right? Look at her, look at each other. Well, not really. Like, no, you got a band. I heard that you have a band. We looked at each other, and she's like really forceful with it. So our New York shit kicked in instantly, where he looked at me and I looked at him, and we're like, something in both of us said, okay, this is a moment to shut the fuck up and just watch what happens. So she said, well, I know you guys are a band, and the whole deal, well, my club is this club, and we're having a party, blah, 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 no deal, and we need a band for our party, and I think you guys would be perfect. We're just like,
But she hadn't even heard y'all yet. That's funny.
I know it's just funny, man. I wish
But
I
you
was making
just
this up.
look
I
like
make up
it.
shit about my life,
That's
dude.
awesome.
And so, she called over one of her friends and said, "They're a band." And they came over and said, "Oh, great. What kind of music do you play?" And we looked at each other, and I said, "Noise band. We're a noise band." And so noise was a thing, right?
Yeah,
So
I listen to like
she
a
said,
lot of that
"Okay, great.
stuff.
Well, right." So she said, and they were like fucking serious, and they were like, "So, well, like, so what do you want? Like, how much do we pay? What do you want?" And we're like, "Oh, shit." And so I looked at homeboy, and he looked back at me, and I said, "Fuck it," because you don't want to take too long to say something. So I read off a fucking list. Bow. You want this, that, this, and this, and this, and that. And we said one really stupid thing, just to fuck with them, just to make them go out of their way. And you know, everybody's heard the story of the claim of the M&M's thing or whatever and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
Van
Whatever.
Halen.
Right. So we threw the M&M shit on. We
No,
said, "Yeah, we
no,
want
you didn't.
yeah, we did." But we didn't say pick the ones out. We said we want all blue M&Ms, all
Wow,
blue. You know,
that's hilarious.
a certain amount of money, certain amount of food, whatever, stuff like that. Not a lot of money, whatever. We didn't know what the fuck they asked for. And so they did. They left, and he was like, my man. So he was like, "So you got gas?" I said, "You know what? Don't worry about it. We get this together. We're gonna give him a show." He was like, "We don't have a band." I was like, "We're going to give them a show because what business is this? It's a show business."
business.
So I went and hung up a boy of mine who, to be honest with you, we'd hang out again every weekend, him and a whole nother crew of my folks. You know, I've always been one that existed between different crews. So I got a crew of folks that I hang out with in Tribeca damn near every fucking weekend. And literally all these motherfuckers do is drink and smoke. And some of them did coke, not me. But we get into all sorts of shit. And if we weren't fucking at wetlands, seeing bands or in the middle of some shit or backstage causing some ruckus, we were the fucking ruckus. Literally, I mean, all sorts of shit. Like that's a whole nother. Like you're gonna need 2 more lives for me to explain all that shit. And so I grabbed this dude. I was like, "Listen, I need you to play bass in this fucking shit." He's like, "I don't play bass." Shut the fuck up. Listen to me. You're
You
gonna
do
fucking
now.
play bass in this fucking show. It's gonna be real simple. I'm gonna teach you what the fuck to do. All you gotta do is fucking do it. There's no way you can't do this shit. It's the simplest, dumbest shit in the fucking world. Just shut the fuck up and do what the fuck I tell you to do. Let's get this fucking money. Man, to this day, when I see him, somehow this story comes up. And he tries to like pawn this off. To this day, he's still trying to like pass this off on chicks. You know, literally like, "Yeah, I was officially his first bass player." Motherfucker, you weren't shit. You couldn't even fucking learn the fucking 3 fucking notes of a phrase I fucking showed you for us to go get this fucking money. Never fucking forget that shit. Oh, it's so fucking pitiful. You know, some things you don't have to be a professional in to do. You just need balls. Really. I mean, that's really it. And nothing will ever change that. It's just a matter of the physics of this reality. That's it. You know, God will be there to lift you if you have the fucking balls.
That's right.
So,
What's up, Sam? I see you. We got Samantha Hollins in the house.
all
Ghetto
right,
Songbird.
it's a true thing. So I'm trying to teach him this fucking shit so that we play no more than 3 songs of this damn thing. 3 songs. We couldn't find a drummer, like a legit drummer. Thought we had a drummer, didn't work out, whatever. Had no fucking drum set. Had
another friend of ours, this biker wannabe white dude, told him the story, whatever, stuff like that. He said, listen, I'll do anything for a quarter Jack Daniels. Bomb. No problem. Fast forward, day of the fucking show. Show up at the space where the club was having their party. Orlando, these poor young ladies went all out. They spent their money. They had a spread of fucking food. They had the M&Ms and the whole shit. They fucking listen.
You jiving me? They actually did that.
They absolutely did. Man, I can't tell you the shit that I went through trying to get this shit ready. You know, I had a couple of songs I tried to teach homeboy. He was never fucking straight with that shit. Couldn't find a drummer. Found our man who said, you know, give me this Jack Daniels and I'll fucking be on this garbage can lid. We'll fucking do shit like that. I was like, you know what? Bet. Let's fucking do it. Bar the amp. Got up there. 3 of us, because the singer didn't show up right away.
Oh, no.
Right?
No.
What I didn't know is that he was pulling this little bit of a New York hardcore thing where the fucking singer would run from the outside through the club up on the stage with a backpack on his back and then just start jumping. And that's what the fuck he did. But we didn't know that was happening. He just wasn't there. And we started this like, well, fucking, we can't wait for him no more. We better do fucking something. Otherwise, these people are going to get us arrested or shot or some shit. So we went up there, and it was hard. I mean, it was scary hard. It was the kind of shit that it's as if somebody said, "Yo, Orlando, we need you to fill in for Metallica, and we need you to play all Metallica songs." And you said, "But I'm a bus driver. I've never played this shit in my life. It doesn't matter. Just get the fuck up there and just fucking do your thing." And you went up there anyway and tried to do your thing for Metallica without knowing even how to plug the cable into the fucking. It was like that. It was that bad. But
Rosinda's laughing.
We put so much into being that bad and that wild with it. We're jumping all over the fucking stage. We're making I'm just banging on this fucking shit. We're making noises. Drunk biker boy in the back got the garbage can lid, and he's like, I swear, I wish there was video of it. I shit you not. All you
I want to see that.
I fucking shit you not. Then the singer runs in the room, just top speed. He runs in, he jumps over some shit, he knocks over somebody, and fucking goes. When he jumps on the stage, he grabs a mic, there's a mic on the floor, and he just gets in there. We must have did that shit for maybe 20 minutes, non-stop. We're fucking exhausted. We're like, now, I don't know if this is good or bad, but the people, I guess, were expecting a packed house, and they didn't get a packed house. But they did get like about 7 or 8 young ladies in their club or whatever, and they're just standing there. And I see them, but one thing that I've always, you know what? You don't pay the audience that many attention. You just don't. You just do your thing. Now, that's always been a thing from acting, right? Not from music so much, right? But I said, you know what? I'm going to stick to that rule. I'm not really going to look at them. I know they're out there, but I'm just going to keep doing what the fuck I'm doing right now and just hope I don't get hit in the head or someone throw me down and just put the cuffs on me and or whatever. So we did that, and I don't think they applauded. I don't know what they did. Wow. I think they just fucking stood there. But we acted like we did our thing.
You said you were annoyed, man. You said you were annoyed, man. They should have knew what they got.
The that hired us was so pissed.
Oh man.
God. Oh my God. She was so pissed. And that was my attitude. Said, we're a noise band. What the fuck? That chick wasn't trying to hear shit. I was gonna get kicked out of this school. I spent my money, thousands of dollars to go to school. I just got here. All my money's gonna be gone. I'll never die. Oh, it's fucked up, man. It's like it's America. You don't hurt white people and their feelings, right? Listen, God is. I don't care what nobody says. You can't tell me that God doesn't exist. I don't give a fuck. If you don't know that God exists, then you never fucking took a risk on anything in your life.
Real talk.
Why did this chick come out of nowhere and just started with the, oh my God, you guys were amazing. And the one
Wait, the chick
who
that
was
booked
pissed,
you?
she's sitting there. This other,
Oh, the other
this
chick.
other chick.
Oh,
Because the chick that hired us was pissed. Pissed.
that,
Before she even get it all out, this other one comes up. You guys were amazing.
that's
That was
awesome.
incredible. And what's the name of your band? And oh my God, whatever. And we just looked at each other. We were like, so those are our M&Ms. And we walked under the table and we just started munching and going to town. We did not wait. Act as if. Act as if. And so that was the beginning of Gamify. Literally, that was
so crazy.
Literally our first gig. Us with FCOJ.
What's FCOJ, if you don't mind me asking?
Frozen concentrated orange juice.
That's so funny, man. Yeah, I remember, yeah, you did say
and we eventually got an actual rhythm section who was able to learn the fucking songs. The drummer was a boy of mine from high school, the original drummer. Even though he didn't last too long because he had a baby, he got all caught up in, had to deal with that. But he definitely played I guess, the second gig, if you want to call it the second gig. Which was, again, at the school. Much better than the first one. Much better than the first one.
What was it? Was it the same chick that booked it?
No. I booked this myself, actually. I booked this myself. And it turned out that I booked a lot of our gigs myself today. And that's how I got into promoting and building out shows and things like that. So Gamify was the beginning of a lot of different things, including the management, including publishing, because I was the one paying for our recordings, and the whole deal or whatever. And then getting them mastered. We're literally taking them to a place to get glass masters made for cassettes, not for CDs, for cassettes.
Wow.
Getting the labels made, taking them to the stores and putting them on consignment in different stores, hoping they get picked up and shit like that. And, had no other way to promote the music, though. I mean, no other way to actually market the fact that these tapes were in stores and stuff like that. And I probably should have held some tapes behind to sell on the street, but instead what I did was what ones I did have hold behind, I would call up production companies and go and drop off tapes to them and say, here's whatever this stuff. So I was doing a bunch of shit, and writing the music, and we eventually stopped having rehearsals in Manhattan studios and configured this place for rehearsal studio to a certain degree, and this was so incredibly fucking shitty, but we rehearsed here for years. As we got better and as we got some popularity and stuff like that or whatever, the place was still shitty though. At the time. To a certain degree, thank God for a fire. Yeah, just thinking about this shit. And some pictures of some of that stuff are on the Bandcamp profile page for Gamify Acme. As you go through the song list, you'll see different pictures on the songs and stuff like that. I think it's 7 or 8 songs, as a matter of fact.
Man, I'm definitely going to check that. So a lot of what you're doing, you were laying the foundation for pretty much what you're doing even now, just with the production end of it, as well as like the production and engineering and just all the other stuff that goes, that pretty much record labels do. So you've always been pretty DIY, if anything.
Yeah, and I never saw it as I initially never saw it as different jobs. It was just what was necessary. And I think there is a New York thing about the fact that, I'll never forget, sometimes people look at my resume, especially when I was younger, and I didn't know it was a negative thing to have a whole bunch of different jobs in your resume. I never thought of it. They never told me that.
I
I
didn't
think it was a thing.
know that.
Yeah, well, some people seem to take it as a negative,
That's
as if you're
strange.
not focused on one particular thing or whatever, stuff like that, or you're not career minded or career focused. Um, but in a place like this, well, there is a handful of people of a particular culture that they go to college, they get their degree, they get a job in the field that they got the degree in, and that's all they ever fucking do. And they take off and like and they go. Now, the majority of the people in the United States do not live that way. Even those that get their degree go, most people do not. They did not live that way back then, and they definitely don't live that way. A lot of them now.
Yeah.
But regardless, in a place like New York, because it's so expensive here, you can live in a way that's not so expensive, but it's still expensive, right?
Mm.
And let's be real, to a certain degree, life is an expensive proposition, no matter where you are, especially if you have a mind to do something, be something more than what's just put in front of you, right? Right. So you hustle, and what I mean by hustle is a certain energy and tenacity and pursuit of something. I don't mean hustle as in tricking or fooling or whatever, stuff like that.
I understand what you mean.
I know what you mean, but see, for the sake of
people that don't. Yeah.
The one person that's still awake and listening. Listen, I've been running since 5 o'clock this morning, so I understand. I don't blame nobody for it. But yeah, there's that kind of reality. So I think to a certain degree, all the different kind of things and jobs and work that I've had kind of led me to, I guess, the mentality that this is just what you do, right? And I didn't realize. Listen, I had, once I opened the studio in 2000. It wasn't until I had been doing this for about 2 years that one of my clients said, "So you're a producer?" And I was like, "No, I'm a producer, I'm an engineer." And he said, "No, you make music. You're a producer." And I had no association or understanding of that until they said it. When I was in Gamma Phi Acme and I was writing the music, but also booking the shows, but also part of promoting the shows. Now, we did have management initially, but there's different points of view. There's a point of view that management wasn't doing enough for us and failed us, and there's a point of view that they were trying to pull us along slowly, but they weren't necessarily experienced at being music managers themselves. But there was also the other side that, well, what they're trying to push and promote is an all-black punk act. That's not the Bad Brains in New York City, and we may have had no idea what kind of amount of resistance that we were getting.
Wow.
Right? Because, what people ignore about the United States is that bigotry and racism, especially in the North, doesn't necessarily come at you by way of saying, "No, we don't want no blah, blah, blah in here," or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
You just say, "No, thank you. We just don't want you." And
Yep.
it could be 45 out of 50 places that will do that, right?
Yep.
Now, there's a reality too that I think that sometimes that we don't deal with a reality that says that, you know, while every place is for you and should be for you, not everybody wants you in your space, and it's not necessarily because you're black. And even if it is because you're black, it doesn't mean that they hate you or dislike you because you are. Now, it still equates to fucking racism,
Yep.
right? But it doesn't necessarily equate to maliciousness, because
It's very subtle.
it's subtle, but there's also a human reality to it, because you and I particularly both know that we have spaces that we want for ourselves that we don't want no fucking body else in. And I got no problem saying that openly. You, and I mean you and me, for example, right? You know, now we're open people, but listen, I don't necessarily want everybody in every little bit of soup that I'm in, but that doesn't mean that I'll exclude anybody
Yeah,
in
I understand.
exclusivity on any fucking day. And the reason I'm pointing this out in this manner is to say that I think one of the things about what I was pursuing and what I was trying to do is not worry about the places that would ice us out, right? And focus more on the places that would accept us and take us in, regardless of who they were and what they were. Without getting myself all bunched up and wound up about what wasn't happening or what wasn't coming our way that we felt we were due. Because as an artist, as a business person, that shit will eat you up and fucking consume you. And it's not that it's not true or it's not real. It is true. It is fucking real. Motherfuckers are like that. And this is what the fuck they do. These people are fucking shitty, right? But there's so much more to focus on that can propel you to what you're looking for. And we, in particular, need to focus on giving ourselves what we want and not worrying about what motherfuckers are keeping from us for what we want, at least as far as it comes to this in the arts, right? If we were talking about food or shelter or something else, that's a different story. I say fucking overrun those motherfuckers and we take whatever the fuck we can get to take, and that's what's up. Because you ain't gonna fucking ice us out and keep us out in the fucking cold and shit, and we fucking come out here and we can't survive. That's another fucking story. But we gotta keep shit in perspective, right? So we ended up being able to, ironically, do our thing, and I was able to kind of build certain things in the back of that. And I think what I built more than anything else was experience, more than, let's say, a book of contacts or anything like that. Because especially at this day and age, you know, the fact that I'm still doing this, so many people have done their thing and they're past it and they're tired of it and they're just like, I did that, whatever. It's for another age, another era. Like I said, I'm the immature one that keeps doing this stuff because I, you know, love it the way I do. But you know, we were able to make a real home out of Bond Street Cafe. We were able to make a real home out of CBGB's. We were able to make a real home out of North River Bar. These are all places that are no longer around, but has some significance in New York. North River Bar was down the street from Wetlands. We finally got to play Wetlands right before, not shortly, but relatively shortly before the end of Wetlands, but damn near right at the end of Gamma Phi Acme,
Wow.
ironically. But at least we got to be there. We spent so much time there, and then we got to play there, so that was wonderful. We need a place like Wetlands again, to be honest with you. We need a place like CB's again, but we really need a Wetlands again. So yeah, it's foundational, I guess, you know, in that sense. And I'm thankful for all those experiences. It's helped me a lot, but times change, things change, people change, the players change, and there's always something new to learn and something new to build. And a large part of me feels like that's where I'm at. And some of it is a matter of feeling like you've come too far to go backwards, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. That's why I was like,
Um,
man, it's like from what I'm seeing from you, it's like you're trudging forward, but it's just like a lot of grand things, man. Like, and it's a trip just even talking about how, you know, you went on the notion of just like, yeah, we are a band, and then you just did it, and look at what flourished as a result of that. That to me is also a God thing too, man. It's of course we're using our creativity. You know, I'm not obviously talking about God as this sort of like, like spook or whatever. You know, like it's more like, well, man,
well, God's
the
not
most
some big bearded white man in the sky. That's not what God
no,
is, right?
not at all.
I mean, I guess
Nah,
God could be if that's what she wanted to be, but
no.
I don't think that's,
I think,
yeah, all right. So,
and I know you're not saying that either. I wasn't saying that to say that. I was
yeah,
just
right, right,
basically
right, right,
picking.
right. No. Yeah,
I
no,
was
you were,
piggybacking off of what you
yeah.
were saying about the Most High and how kind of like even with when that one girl says that was great, but even before that, the fact that you use what people call faith, you actually put something into existence that that didn't exist. You made it happen, and also the fact that like looking at how you did that, it's like okay, you laid the foundations for the season. Now, some people would not even do it. They'd fear such, oh no, we don't have anything. But you actually just like you went for that and basically made something, and now that spawns some other things that even that you're doing to this day. That's really remarkable to me, you know.
Yeah, I don't, you know what? I don't know that I make anything happen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I do what I do. Sometimes it's because sometimes it's because this is the way I love to tinker. Um, Sometimes it's because I do have some sort of grand idea. Can't say a plan, but a grand idea. And I chase it and I pursue it, and it changes as you know, as it goes along, and it's kind of forced to. Like I give you an example, the pandemic was a huge and insane change. Um, in some ways, and I've never said this out loud before, in some ways, it was really, really horrible in my experience. Um, Not just, I mean, obviously the pandemic was. It's so hard sometimes to say was about the pandemic. Obviously, it was a horrible thing, and I mean a really horrible thing. I had good friends and connections that passed um, due to it. Um, Whether people believe it or not, whether people believe it was a conspiracy or whatever, stuff like that, and whatever. I mean, all these things could be true, but at the end of the day, people actually died, and I know a couple of those people that actually died.
Yeah, same here.
And it affected my business. It affected, and when I say my business, you know, the fact that I as a business and I've had to build a business out of it, which has always been a struggle. It's always been a struggle. We've been open 23 years now. Um,
Wow, that's awesome.
but but all of that has been intersped upon um, and amongst you know um, the weird, strange bedfellows that have sometimes come along in some ways with corporate positions where they literally find out, oh, you do this, we do, well, this is perfect for this. It's like, oh, I'm not trying to do that. Wait, you want to pay me how much? I'll rock with you guys for a little while this still goes on. And so then, you literally have 2 or 3 jobs because I don't stop doing this. Even though I've had a couple of places that said, so wait, you still have the place? Yeah, I still have the fucking place open. But we need you to do this. Oh no, I gotta go. I got a couple clients coming. I gotta go. But when the pandemic happened, it was crazy. It was Shrine for the Black Madonna had just started to kind of get some momentum going again for some of the stuff that we had, because we've had, you know, fits and starts, interruptions and stuff like that, even though Shrine now has been together I want to say 21 years now.
Wow. How did that come about? That's another thing I was wondering. And by the way, I
Oh,
love the way that you guys sound. I could hear so many different influences, and just like, it's a very interesting band. And I put even on the hashtag, like, oh shoot, I don't know what that is. Sorry about that. And I got eyelash in my eye. I'm like, um, um, I know, man. I'm like, dang, this is embarrassing. I'm sorry. Um, but no, you guys have a lot of interesting things going on. I mean, like, some of that stuff, I called it progressive hardcore or progressive sort of metal almost, but you still can't really like categorize what Shrine is, you know. And the fact that you guys, from what I remember reading, you guys had a show where you had Ursula Rucker and Abdil, I can never say his name, Abby
Abby
Doom
O'Doon.
from Last Poets, man. Yeah, I always mess up his name, man. Oyewele. I always messed up that brother's name. But like the fact that like you had these cats, like you worked with these cats like playing, and even your own stuff is just like, it's really eclectic and very, you can say that there's elements of course metal, but also post-punk, also like just like Middle Eastern music and hip hop. I could hear all of that stuff in Shrine, man. And even before I heard you guys, man, I remember like that name just seemed so grand. I mean, I'm actually Orthodox Christian, believe it or not. And even before I was that, like, I just remember reading, of course, a lot of black like authors and stuff, people like Ben Yakinen and all those, and a lot of different black writers that would talk about the Shrine, and I've always kind of looked into those kind of like black conscious type, spiritual type stuff going on. And so hearing about the Shrine, of course, there's a bookstore too, but like, you know, the Black Madonna, you see it in Russia, you see it all over the world, you know, and people they don't realize that that's like the OG like icon, you know, like, and just when I heard, I'm like, well, there's a band who has that name. That's interesting. It was always a grand thing, you know, like even before I went into, you know, the Tawahedo type stuff. But like, I'm like, man, who is this band? And I didn't hear you guys until later, but I was like, for the longest, like even before I heard you, again, there's that grand image. It's just like, who is this band that's like, and then hearing them like, wow. Sorry, I didn't mean to go all off, but like, yeah.
No. I appreciate it. It's such a weird. Well, I'll tell you a very quick thing about the name of the band. And people confuse it obviously with the church, but it's Shrine for the Black Madonna, as opposed to Shrine of the Black Madonna, right?
Yeah, I have to correct
And
that. I'm so used to saying that, and then I did correct that though. But yeah,
no,
my bad.
but so the short answer is that it came from a song that Brian wrote that was actually called Shrine for the Black Madonna, and well, I guess it connects to how we came together. So me and this is gonna sound really fucking weird. Like, this is gonna sound really fucking weird. So me and Brian got together via an ad in the Village Voice.
I gotta hear this.
That sounds so crazily queer.
No, it doesn't. But
I know the Village Voice, it kind of does. You know,
I didn't think about that until you said that. That's funny.
Yeah, that's why I was just like, the fuck, man, wow. Because there's no other fucking way to say it. You know, the Village Voice was that paper. It was the paper for all that fucking shit, but it was also, you know, the real deal music rag of New York
That's
City.
what I've always heard of it as. So when you said that, that's what popped in my head. I didn't know
it's got all that other shit in it too. I mean, that's also what it was known, right? So that's what made it so ironic, and that's why I was like, oh, fucking shit. So it is what it is, right? Um, so everybody in the music used that paper for a lot of different stuff, and I had just opened the studio. I just opened the studio. Um, I think I probably had a couple of clients before Brian actually came through. But I was also trying to put together a new. I was looking for players for a new band, but I was primarily looking for clients. Um, and I'm still looking for clients, folks.
Yes, definitely plug that if you're in the New York area, and even if you're not in the New
No,
York
even if you're
area,
not in the New York area, you don't have to be in the New York area. I've had plenty of people come here from overseas. Ironically, the BBC has been here. Sabrina Stark from Norway has been here. If anybody knows who Sabrina Stark is or was or whatever, a couple of British bands. But that's another story altogether. So Brian put an ad in the paper that really kind of struck me at the time when I saw it, and it said looking for a guitar player. I can't remember what the details were, but there was something about the way he worded it that really was kind of like, huh. And I'll never forget he came over. But like I said, when I saw his ad, I'm thinking I'm reaching out to someone who could be a potential client. I'm not thinking that I'm reaching out to somebody to collab with for a band. I don't know what was in his mind, but that's what was in my mind. And I remember right off the bat feeling really put off because he comes in and we make highs and whatever, stuff like that. And he instantly starts teaching me one of his songs. I'm like,
like, who does this guy think he is?
He's teaching me. Well, not so much who he thinks he is so much, but like, what the fuck, we're not having you to your fucking songs. But me, like a fucking idiot, I'm just shutting the fuck up and I'm absorbing, I'm listening, I'm playing it because that's the dude I am. I'll sit there and I'll pay attention for a while because I want to see what the fuck is going on. And so I'll float and like, let me see what the fuck, let me just see where this goes. But I'm not really liking this situation. But I'm really cool myself out and just yeah, okay. And by the end of it, pick up the song, whatever, stuff like that, whatever. And, I don't know if he was auditioning me. Talking about how to, whatever. But at the same time, I'm still creating a way at the time of connecting with people and getting clients and stuff like that or whatever. And I think the two clients I had at the time just found me, came in, called me, said, hey, we want to do this and that sort of thing. It's a little different now how people connect and way do things, especially considering that so many people now have the ability to do what I've built here, which at the time there were very few people doing it. Now there's a lot more, obviously, right? But that was kind of the beginning of it. And so we were initially working on mostly his songs. It's part of what I still had in my mind of how am I not figuring out a way to charge this dude? Like, what the fuck? Because he's teaching me his music, I'm learning his music, and then we're actively, kind of doing things to sort of lay it down with the system I had at the time. And so I think we must have went through 2 or 3 songs. Hold Back the Dawn, Swell Hell, and Come See About Your Baby. And he comes in one day, and I would have been working on something, a couple of my own tracks, but he heard one song, he heard Runners. And he said, yo, what's that? And I said, that's something I'm working on. Yo, let me try that. I was like, nah, man. No, this ain't for you. This is one of my, and I was serious. I was like, come on, man, you gotta let me know. I was like, fuck out of here, dude. Just, and he probably bugged me for about a week or two before something in my mind said, well, right now you're not doing anything else with it. Let's see where this goes. And that became Runners, which is actually about September 11th.
Wow.
And we ended up working on that, and I think for a year it was just me and Brian, recording stuff right in here. This space was very different at the time, very different. Recording stuff, laying down some programmed drums, and the whole deal. Yeah, I think I played guitar and bass on that, and I programmed the drums, vocals. I mixed it. I didn't have anywhere near the tools that I wanted to have or should have had, and I actually thought it was fucking horrible. But I took it as far as it could go in that iteration, and I said, "Dude, this is as far as we can go." He's like, "Really, this is it?" I was like, "Yeah, but I'll stand behind it. Fuck it. I think it's more important to get it out, and then we build from there." And so that's what we did, and we were able to get some other folks in. We got a bass player who wasn't actually a bass player but a cellist.
Oh,
Trevor
that's
Exter.
Wow.
And Trevor is our boy to this day. And Trevor, if you ever get a chance, check out Trevor's music. Trevor Exter. Trevor's amazing. And we auditioned a number of drummers. Well, no, was that? Now I'm a little confused. So we had a couple. So we had Trevor Exter, but before Trevor, we had another bassist from Israel, Tom Moriah, who had played with us for a while, and he ended up leaving before he could play the first gig with us at CBGB's. That's what that was. And so Trevor came in, and we were able to get with him, and he was amazing. We auditioned a number of drummers. A lot of this got interrupted by September 11th, because we started about late 2000, sometime in 2001, early 2001. Wow. So that's what I think spurred Tom to go back to Israel, was whatever happened after September 11th, the way the economy was, because everything here was a mess. At the time I was doing this, I was also working for Electro Harmonics. Some people listening may know Electro Harmonics. You and I discussed that deeper story, but I won't get into all that right this minute. We eventually settled on a young lady from Switzerland, Medit Keller, to play
drums. Is that the drummer, the lady drummer that I saw the picture on?
Wow. And she was with us for 14 years.
Man.
Ironically, she wasn't the one that we initially picked. We initially picked this dude from Italy who was a little bit too crazy for us. It says a lot. It says a lot. And we picked him, he came in, and he was pretty off the fucking meat rack. And we only worked with that dude one day after this. This is after we've auditioned him. So we've auditioned him 2 or 3 times, and then he came in, thinking like, okay, you're the dude. And he came in for that one day, that one rehearsal was just like, oh no, yeah, this is a mistake. And then call her. It was like, hey, listen, what's up? She was like, yeah, I come in. Oh, yeah, sure. And came in, and bada boom, bada bing. There it was. We went off, we did that thing, and we played that first gig at CD's Gallery. And so that's how we got together with that. And then I then I think at one point, let's see, we were at, I was seeing a friend of mine's band. I think Brian was with me. I'm going to go check out a boy of mine's band. Or we went to go play a gig, actually. And he had this bassist with him that happened to be Jazz, Jarius Odoms. And me and Jazz exchanged information. I hit Jazz up. I said, yo, blah, blah, blah. He said, word, I'll come through. I think that was, I think Trevor, after that gig, Trev had his own thing going on, so we went back to focus on his own thing. And then Jazz came in. And so then it was me, Brian, Jazz, and Medit. And that is the lineup that you hear on the double albums, which ironically are, so I didn't show you that. That's actually also right there on the wall, Paradise and Inferno.
Wow.
With artwork by Wangechi Mutu, who she did that for us and just did that for us. So we love Wangechi.
That's a pretty cool album, man.
Thank you.
What were the influences of the Shrine for the Black Madonna? Like, I'm curious about that, just like as a collective and even individually, if you know, like just the individual cats aside from yours. And I still want to know who actually even influenced you on guitar.
Well, the influence of the band is a little weird. You know, I mean, we've had some discussions about these things, and to a certain degree, I guess we still do, but there's so many different things that influence us in different moments. And I'd say that it's like that to this day, to be honest with you. I can't speak to Medit's influences, really, but what I can speak to regarding Medit is that she came to New York to get a degree in music from City College, which she definitely got while she was here. And so for musicians that know anything about New York and know anything about, you know, studying music, especially in New York, even at City College, especially at City College, so much of the core of, you know, the scholarship is based in jazz. And to be honest with you, ironically, especially considering what I was talking about earlier as far as jazz is concerned, that was big for me because I've never really been a fan of rock drummers. I've always found them somewhat one-dimensional and not very creative and just not funky. And you know, I need some ass in my shit. Period. I need some ass in my shit. You know, I'm from New York, man. Punk and hardcore is dance music, and motherfuckers gotta want to dance, whether that dance is in a mosh pit or whether that fucking shit is just fucking swinging some fucking hips, whatever the fuck it is. But you know, and a lot of rock dudes, you know, rock or rock and roll or whatever the fuck the term is in the moment is fucking dance music. It's our fucking music. And I can tell you something. A lot of these motherfuckers who say some of the stupid shit that they say about black people and rock music or whatever stuff like that, they ought to be fucking ashamed. And I don't mean ashamed because they're ignoring who the originators of rock are. Whatever the fuck, man. Be original or not original. If you can come and do it better than fucking show and prove, shut the fuck up, put your fucking music with it. Put your mouth where the fucking music is. Literally, put your mouth where the music is. And they can't fucking show and prove, and their fucking shit sucks, and they got no fucking rhythm, and they don't fucking make people dance. They don't make people fucking move, and they don't inspire fucking people. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people who do, right? But as far as I'm concerned, a band should inspire pregnancies and mass chaos in the way that the fucking Blues Brothers band did in their fucking movies, and that was a fake fucking band. But that's what's supposed to fucking happen.
Dude, you got a lot of quotables, man. I got I gotta just like when I watch this, I'm gonna be like quoting like, man, Jared has a bunch of proverbs, man. Like straight
I'm
up
just saying, that's just isn't that what a band's supposed to do? Otherwise, you're just sitting in a fucking room watching people standing around playing. Like, I mean, shit, this is the fucking year 2023. You can fucking watch that shit at home, right? You know, what are you going out to pay $100 to see a band for? Because you want to feel some shit. Right? That's the whole point. Whether it's gospel, whether it's fucking blues, whether it's, you want them to fucking make you feel like some oh shit, what the fuck? You want that's what it is. You want
out of the seat. Yep. Gotta get out there. Gotta get out that seat.
Oh, Jesus, what did you just say? Jesus just said, "What the fuck?" That's what's supposed to happen,
man.
You know, and so
getting out of the seat.
Medit was that kind of drummer. You know, Jazz is that kind of bass player. Brian is that kind of writer, I think. And I think I add a little something to that.
Man, you kill on guitar, dude. I dig the stuff that I heard you play, man. Like, and I'm wondering, like, who are your guitar inspirations?
Well, you know, it's funny, and I have to say I'm honored to be talking about this or have myself included on a thing like what you got me on today. I appreciate it, bro. Of all people's birthdays, Hendrix's birthday. So,
Jim,
can't deny Hendrix.
So this is very special.
I can't say that I am a follower of his like so many people are. Like I said, I don't really kind of attach myself to personal iconography in that way, really. But I mean, you know, he's hard to ignore. So is Wes Montgomery. But for me also, Lightning Hopkins and Howlin' Wolf. No, sorry, I'm not saying his name right. Howlin' motherfucking Wolf. But there's more to guitar playing than about guitar playing. It's about writing. It's about phrasing. It's about, I think of guitar is my main instrument. But I don't think about these things in terms of, well, I'm not saying anybody is suggesting this. I'm just kind of coming from this place right now. I don't think of these things in terms of playing guitar per se. I think of these things in terms of a song, a composition, and its movement. And I think to a certain degree, I think of myself more as a songwriter and composer than I might think of myself as a guitarist of any kind of measure, I suppose.
Would you say the guitar is more of a component in the pieces that you write in that sense? I totally understand because I am not a keyboard player, but I've used keys at times, even though I don't know how to play the piano to save my life. But I've used that as sort of like just kind of like a piece of the puzzle that will just make it fit by what I want it to do in that sense. I don't know if it's the same way,
well,
but
No, I mean that makes sense. And I'm definitely a guitarist. But a guitar for me is the thing I enjoy playing the most. But it's more the song more than anything. And so for me, it's very much a component that works that way. Of course, I've written things that are out there that, it may have started with a different instrument, even though in general, it almost always starts with guitar. there's some things. So I have a project that's actually sort of started in the 90s, and I don't think we ever released it officially. It is out there, but it was never like really officially released to the label. But
Is
I
it the
definitely put a couple
Love Story
things out
one?
called, yeah, you know, I mean, it's like 9 songs actually. Um, but there's that one video for Space, um, which is actually guitar. It's just guitar and drums. There's no bass in there. There's no keys. It's just guitar and drums. Um, but a lot of the other stuff in there is really crazy, ethereal, non-Western rhythmic, electronic sounding stuff. Um, and the full album is listenable on SoundCloud. So I did put that on SoundCloud.
Yeah,
Um,
that's where I saw that at actually,
yeah,
and I'm like, oh, cool.
it was made years before SoundCloud existed. Um, and I decided to put it out on SoundCloud. And maybe one day I'll put out a whole release of it and the whole deal or whatever. If I can find, well, I guess it depends on a couple of things. If I can find the hard drive that all the original stuff is on, and then remix it in a way that's more modern, but maybe that might fucking ruin it. To be honest with you, I'll get into tinkering and shit. Maybe I'll just do a light touch remaster or something just to give a little enhancement or whatever, and then maybe actually give it a release and see what happens. I don't know though. That singer became a Trump supporter. Maybe not.
Well, what are you working on right now, man? If you don't mind letting us know. I don't know if some things are just kind of you might be wanting to keep it on the low or not. Is what?
Yeah, it's secret. Well, ironically, just before we started, we had just finished a Shrine for the Black Madonna rehearsal.
Wow.
And we actually are playing with Burnt Sugar in January. But we also, what's crazy? One of the crazy things about Shrine for the Black Madonna, I don't know if this is a secret, but I don't know if anybody has ever given a fuck either, because I don't think we've given anybody a reason to give a fuck. Which is one of our own dysfunctions, even though it's not really dysfunction. It is what it is. But we actually are sitting on a lot of recorded music. Some of that is very recent music that was primarily recorded just before the pandemic. And hopefully will be out shortly. I actually thought it would be out earlier this year, but we had to make some moves, which has held that up. But for good reasons, they're good musical reasons, actually. Production stuff. We actually went to another studio this year, summer, and recorded some of these same songs again for something else. So we've actually kind of doubled up on the recording. None of this shit makes any fucking sense. That's why I'm fucking laughing about it, because otherwise it's really frustrating. But it's I guess these are good problems, I suppose.
That's cool though, because it's more for people to hear. You guys have a very unique sound.
It's just a matter of when people will get to fucking hear it.
Yeah,
that's really where it's at for me. It's just like, the fuck, man, people gonna fucking hear it. So there's that, and that's hopefully coming soon. I'm actually co-producing and finishing up mixing now on a jazz album for the time.
That's so crazy. It's funny. I was thinking about what you said. Man, I hated jazz, and now, well, I mean, you did say that there's certain kinds of jazz. Like me, there's certain kinds of jazz, but now, ironically, you're producing a jazz album.
And it's a smooth jazz album.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's hilarious, but this is some shit, man. This is some good shit. And it's got Tyrone Cox on a couple of the songs. Tyrone Cox from the Drifters and Ben E. King.
Man.
So
dude, how did you score that? That's rad.
He's actually on trumpet on one of the songs. He sings backup on another song and the whole deal. And yeah, this is good. This is gonna be some shit. And I'm actually, it's funny. They want to record here, and then they also want me to play on it. So there's a couple of things I actually play on.
That's so cool.
And I was like, "You sure you want me to play on this? I mean, you guys know what I do, right?" They're like, "No, that's how we want you. We want you to play." I was like, "Word." I'm like, "Fuck yo shit up." And so there's a couple of tracks on that, and so I'm, the mixes are already good, but I can't say I'm a perfectionist, but I'm definitely a fucking mad scientist. So tightening that up, and I hope to have that done by sometime in January. So I told the client. We'll be mixing and mastering that here. And we're supposed to be releasing that on the World Eater Recordings label. So that's the Tyree Pope group from the bassist Tyree Pope. And right before, maybe a week before Thanksgiving, we have, well, I'm feeling a way about it, but that's because I'm weird. And so technically we have finally finished the new Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy EP.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I never really heard too much of that. Could you describe for the listeners what that is? That's one of the funniest names that I've ever heard for a group, by the way.
How do I describe what is Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy? Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy is a threat. Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy is the rude, insulting bastardization of everything that somebody taught you was immoral, upsetting, disrespectful, and unacceptable in this world. Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy
Is it like a nice insult or something? Like,
I don't know if it's nice.
No.
I don't know if it's nice. Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy is like somebody rubbing their balls in your face.
Ugh.
And you want to fucking gut that son of a bitch for daring to fucking do so. But then he goes and just throws fucking $20,000 in cash in your face and says, "Here." And
What the heck?
and you had that moment where you don't know what the fuck to do. You're like,
That's like the most oxymoron. That's
and
crazy.
So you say, fucking, you just take the fucking money. And you fucking leave.
Yeah.
Hating that motherfucker, but you got the fucking money, so you're fucking out.
How would you describe the sound of that? That's a trip.
That is how it sounds. Now, the rest of it, I don't
Comedy,
know.
man.
Do I have some? It's there's already 2 EPs. There's videos. It's 4 words: Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy. And the thing about the name is that it represents exactly the opposite of what the words mean. Nothing fucking sweet about it. It sure as hell ain't fucking fuzzy. And it's not a goddamn thing itsy or bitsy about the shit.
I'm sorry for laughing. That is a trip.
It's a mess. You know.
That's a trip.
And we just finished, and I just finished mixing and mastering. And I can tell you, it's been daunting. It's literally been daunting and horribly fucking frustrating. And I'm to a certain degree so glad to be done with this fucking nasty ass fucking shit. And then on top of it, I'm still thinking in the sense that I should add 2 more fucking joints to it.
Comedy,
man. Whatever. But the EP is actually called Tray Bag, right? Because it's the 3rd EP, and it's only meant to have 3 fucking songs. But I might just add a 4th and a 5th. But then that would make it fucking take even fucking longer. And it's already taking too fucking long, you know.
I know how that is, man. Trust me. I've been working on this project for a decade. I know how you feel.
I can't do things for a decade because this stuff is meant to be heard and meant to be listened to. And it's not meant to be fucking sat on. And to me, that's a fucking waste. It's a waste of my time. Oh, no. It's a waste of the fucking energy.
My situation is a little strange, and my situation is a little bit strange, and I'll tell you off of this. But yeah, I understand what you mean, though. Like,
either way, but that's the problem. And unfortunately, that's the thing that happens to a lot of folks. Unfortunately, you know, and it's the reason to a small degree why in the past I've said, you know what, this is not where I want to be, but we're letting it fucking go because it's more important that it gets out there because people pay attention to it and we can build off it and we can do the next thing even. Now, I don't disagree with the concept that, you know, first impressions make blah, 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 blah. I absolutely fucking agree with that. But I also understand the reality that first impressions, you know what? Who gives a fuck what the fuck you think? Fuck you.
Yeah.
First impression, shut the fuck up. You know, you don't have to fucking like it. Matter of fact, it's going to roll you the fuck over anyway. So if you don't fucking like it the first time around, it doesn't make a difference because coming back around the corner is going to fucking run you off the fucking road. So, you know what I mean? It is what it is.
No, I understand. You know, totally understand.
There's only some. We don't. That's just human control issues. Whatever. Fuck it.
Yeah.
That's not for me to do.
This situation, it was just like, I'm here. Oh, something goes crazy. Dang, I got to do another game plan. Something else goes mad. Another game plan, and I'm like, okay, I'm still staying the course, but I'm gonna rock madness no matter what. So that's why.
No, I understand. Listen, that's what happened to us during the pandemic.
Man.
You know, matter of fact, a week before lockdown happened, we played a gig. Don McKenzie was playing drums for us. I tell you something, it was the first time that Shrine for the Black Madonna was an entirely all black band. And that was a really nice feeling, you know, for a bit. And it was really, you know, it was great. Not that it was better or worse any other way, whatever, because, you know, every iteration that we've been in has been fantastic. But, you know, for the sake of the conversation, the realm that we're in, Black History of Rock and Roll, that, you know, it was fantastic. And, you know, we ended up playing with, you know, we played at Union Hall. We played with some of the remnants of Dragons of Zinth and the whole deal. And we played with what's his name from the Victor Wooten from the Roots was in one of the bands. Vernon came to see us and the whole deal, and it was a great gig. And a week later, the whole fucking world shut down.
That's crazy.
And I also shut down the studio. I couldn't let nobody else in here, and I literally locked this place down for a whole fucking year. And
wow.
I don't mean almost a year. I mean 12 fucking months at least. If not more. No, maybe it was maybe it was 9, 10 months officially, because that happened in March, and in January of the following year, I got a call from Ed Stokes, um, who had a documentary um, called "Conversations: The Black Radical Tradition,"
Mm.
with some amazing, amazing people from the I want to say the post civil rights era, because this was like the early 70s when things started to really jump off, when it was really jumping off, you know, post Malcolm and post Martin.
Yeah.
And um, it had one of my professor advisors, I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now, um, who was an advisor for the group that I was with, that was part of the 1988, 89 Cooney takeover. Um, and it was just an amazing project. And he called me up to actually mix it for him.
Man.
So I came back in here and realized that it was not good to be out of here for a year, not just for a lot of reasons. In particular, the fact that when humans evacuate a place, other things move in.
Oh, wow.
So I had to take care of that and had to do some rewiring,
Man.
and shit of the network, So it's an interconnected network between this floor and the mixed desk that's on the second floor. So I had to do some things, but then I also changed some computers around. But then I also gave us an upgrade to some of the software, some of the other equipment in here as well, which all it was needed. Just wasn't expecting it right then, but it was what it was. It was a blessing in the end of the day. But it unfortunately took so many things away and people, and time. I mean, listen, that was that was supposed to be my. So I used to throw a concert on my birthday every year, and I used to never tell anybody that it was my birthday. I would just produce. So one of the arms of World Eater Recordings is World Eater Recordings Presents. And so that's the arm that I used to produce a lot of shows through, shows that we did at Sputnik and at M15 in Manhattan and at CBGB's. And sometimes I would play these shows, sometimes, but most of the time I probably wouldn't. And we were able to produce shows that were able to give musicians a chance to make some money, and in some cases we made some pretty good money for ourselves and for the musicians. Not great, but decent, and a good time for the people that showed up, and they got to see some things and hear some things put together in ways that they may not have heard otherwise. A night that starts off with a jazz act and ends with a hardcore act, all in the same bill. You know, different people, different cultures, all mixed in together. People that probably never get a chance to engage one another in such ways, along with, graphic artists and more fine artists and stuff like that or whatever. So I hadn't done one in quite a number of years. The landscape changes, the change of facilities and New York City and stuff like that. But I figured, okay, well, here comes 50. Blessed to be 50. It's time to do that. 2020. And my big 50th birthday got canceled out by a fucking worldwide pandemic. It puts a lot of things in your head as a human being, right? Especially one doing this independently and trying to eke a living out of it and stuff like that or whatever, So it was pretty crazy. Now, at the time, I had not just, but I was also running a multimedia department for Goldman Sachs, which is no place I ever expected I'd end up being at, especially doing
How did that happen? That's a trip.
And I had an agent. They called me. They said, "Listen, we have a place that needs this. They're paying this, and it's Goldman Sachs." I was like, "Who?" The evil empire themselves. Listen,
no, right?
I've worked for two of the bulge banks on this planet. There's like only seven. I've worked at two of them, and I can tell you, I have some amount of respect for Goldman Sachs. I try not to look at things in the sake of good and evil. Good and the evil exists. Evil is a real thing. But evil can be how do you describe evil? There are some evil things. Some things are not so evil, but they're evil. But sometimes you got to give evil a little bit of respect. You got to give evil a little bit of respect. Because evil can sometimes be very sublime. And it can put you in a position to have to make really, really difficult choices. Because sometimes in this life, the choices are not between good and evil or good and bad. Sometimes the choices are between shit and shitty. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily do evil or pick evil, but it does sometimes mean that you open your mind to understanding that evil isn't necessarily all that it's presented as, right? Don't justify it, but you try to understand it for what it is. And I say this to say a lot of people see this particular institution as evil, and I get it. I've always been one of those people. But I also have come to understand that, you know what? They are built to provide a service for people who, I don't mean a nefarious service, I mean a legitimate service. That somebody else would provide that service who could really be nefarious, in their thinking, in their behavior, in their mentality. And Goldman I've never sensed nefariousness from that institution, right? They've definitely done some things that were like, whoa, what the fuck, son, for real? But I've also seen them go out of their way to correct those things. So it's like, okay, I mean, people are people. It's a large organization. They can't monitor everybody. Some people go in there and they're going to do whatever the fuck they're going to do. And it kind of is what it is. I know that one of my first days there, I was talking with somebody, and ironically, we both, he also comes from a music background, and a really, I won't say his name, but he comes from a well-connected and well-known music background, and this guy works in fucking Goldman Sachs, and so I felt comfortable talking to him. I said, so, this place is the devil, right? How are you working for the devil? He's like, yeah, I know, but the devil was the only one hiring. I needed a job.
Wow.
That's realer than fucking real. That's realer than real.
So, I caught the truth in what he was saying, because, like even Obama said, we deal with the world as it is, right? You can't always get everything that we want the way we want out of the world. We deal with the world the way as it is. So it's like, okay. So ironically, they needed somebody for their multimedia department. To I wasn't like the one running the department, but there was only three of us for the entire hemisphere,
That's a
and
trip.
it was part of a department that was only 7 to 9 of us doing what we did for the entire globe
She.
as far as multimedia engineering. Um, so some of it was a matter of supervising builds and installs and repairs of multimedia equipment. Sometimes it was a matter of crafting, you know, instructions and policy on how to use equipment or not to use equipment. Sometimes it was a matter of budgeting. Um, yeah, it was it a lot? It wasn't a lot. It was a lot to do, but it wasn't. I mean, especially considering there's only three people handling a whole hemisphere worth of stuff. Now, I thankfully didn't have to travel up and down the hemisphere. I got to just work out of, you know, one primary location, and everything else was a matter of phone calls and emails and video conferencing. Video conferencing has a lot to do with the position as far as multimedia, because a lot of what is happening, as far as what a lot of us do in music and engineering, directly connects to corporate video conferencing and technology. Um, and that's becoming even, those lines are getting less and less blurred, to be honest with you. That's
As a producer,
how,
do you feel like that's kind of like it kind of taught you just some things business wise too, even with your own, even though like they're using your expertise. Do you feel like just you brought something back from that to even build more on your own brand?
well, the short answer is sure. But I think that the reality is actually the other way around to a certain
Hmm.
degree. I mean, yeah, obviously, like I said before, I get something out of every situation, and I definitely, it lives in me, it sticks in me, it definitely enhances who I am, what I do, the choices I make going forward. But I think the reality, um, of the business and the economics of it is that, um, what we've been used to as far as the technology that's attributed to music and video production in a sense of entertainment and mass communications is being co-opted by large corporations, banks in particularly, primarily for internal private communications. And when I say communications, I don't just mean broadcast. I mean creation of messages. Sometimes one might call that propaganda. But propaganda by itself isn't necessarily a negative thing. Propaganda is just a description of a certain type of communication, right? Propaganda can tell the truth, but the idea of propaganda is that you're trying to use it to convince somebody of something. Propaganda can also be called a commercial, right? Um, but here's where it gets really, I think, daunting as a reality, especially as far as artists and people of
real righteous concern should be. And I'm going to connect this to some things that may not necessarily connect. It's just kind of my point of view on it to a certain degree. But I think that because in a lot of ways, we as communities and individuals, for whatever reason, have not chosen to focus our attention and energy. And when I say energy, I literally mean dollars, to the kind of interests that we claim are important to us. And I mean interests represented by independent artists. Because that those investments haven't gone into those things. And in so many ways, the way that the process of energy is standardized by using conduits such as banks. And I don't know if a bank is necessary or not necessary, so I'm not going there with it. But these are all the same. The money system is the same modality as an electrical system. An electrical system is the modality that modern art primarily is based on, whether it be fine art, whether that be music, whether that be video. That's what it's based on.
Yeah.
Because we haven't focused those energies in a really serious way, and I mean collectively, toward independent artists, what's happened is that growth of energy has accumulated, in particular in corporates in general, but particularly in the banks and financial sector. And they have used that money. They have literally used that energy to co-opt the processes, the tools, and the people that would create righteous art and righteous messaging into their own enclaves for their own private messaging and benefit, to a degree that would scare a lot of people if they were really paying attention. Now, I can tell you, as someone who's worked for 2 of the 7 bulge banks on planet Earth, one thing I am happy to say about Goldman Sachs and my time there, Goldman Sachs is one of the few institutions that I know. Now, I can't say how they are in one sense or another, and I do know that in their own efforts to be diverse, they make a lot of ignorant fucking mistakes and comments, and have really fucked up factual history. Now, I don't think they do so nefariously, but I think that they do so ignorantly, and they need to get that corrected, right? But I say that glad to be able to say that Goldman Sachs does not have a direct connection to American slavery or to the triangle slave trade as an institution, right?
Really?
Goldman Sachs didn't come into business until the 1900s. If there was something that connects the finances of the family that began Goldman Sachs from slavery into that, that's another story. I don't know about that. But the institution itself, when it started in the 1900s. It started well after the end of the triangle slave trade and official, overt legal slavery in the United States, right? Other banks cannot say that.
Nope.
Right? Goldman Sachs was not necessarily an offshoot of another bank that folded and then began that, right? The story of Goldman is that it was started by somebody who created a business selling commercial paper on Wall Street. Commercial paper is a thing. Don't ask me the fucking thing. There's a lot of stuff I know about finance. I don't remember all the specifics about that. How he got his money to do that, I don't know. Maybe he did own slaves, but as far as I know, he did not. But who knows? I don't know, right? But Goldman as an institution, they didn't. However, one of the other bulge banks I work for, and I won't say their name here, definitely had a direct hand in slavery. And their name then is still the same name now. So I'll say that. And those motherfuckers definitely caused me some grief and concern in this day and age while I was there, right? Of a different level. So
wow.
Now I say that to make a larger point, that these are the institutions that have co-opted all of this stuff to create messages and messaging, which we all know is the most powerful influencer on the earth currently, right? And they are primarily doing this privately. That other bulge bank, who I don't name, they literally themselves have an internal broadcast network that rivals NBC and Fox.
Jeez.
And it's completely internal. It's completely meant only for people inside of that enclave, and for them to communicate with that enclave worldwide whenever they feel like it. They're on that level. They're on
Cherish had a question.
that level.
Cherish had a question. She said, do you think that banks still keep us in a form of financial slavery by having too much control over our cash, digital spending, and investments?
I think that the banks keep us enslaved. Well, that's hard to say. Money is currency. Currency is energy. Energy, if you can keep it in a conduit, is a way of being able to control and direct that energy where you want to go, right? So I would suggest that the bank itself may not necessarily be the enslaver, but the banks themselves are part of a system that is definitely built to ensure that it finds a way to support itself through you and your efforts and your energy. It is not in the system's best interest necessarily to destroy you. I don't say that as a defense. I'm just saying that as a reality. It's not in their best interest to destroy you because they want to use you.
I was going to say they need a host. They need a host.
Right. Or they need like that Duracell battery in the Matrix, right?
Man.
And that's real. But what's also real is that we can choose to utilize these things however we best choose to utilize them. Now, it's definitely harder to do so in this day and age than it was when I was younger, right? They've created these systems to purposely find ways to wipe out any ability to dissent, right? This is
Man.
why there's a lot less available cash and a lot more available bank cards. You know, for example, because if you go and get cash out of a bank, it's trackable, but you don't even need to use cash nowadays for the most part, right? But every transaction is recorded,
And they're making everything cashless too.
Well, that's the point. That was their point for making everything cashless. Oh, I'll give you this tip. That Bulge Bank that I wouldn't mention by name that I worked for, they were also the direct purveyors of Easy Easy Pass.
Huh.
And the reason that they created Easy Pass was really a matter of them being able to collect their monies easier for the state, right? They had to. Some of this stuff is not meant to be nefarious. It's just not. It's the idea is that it makes something else easier for human life or existence or something like that. But you know, the road to good intentions, right?
Yeah. Shoot. Well, dude, with
So,
that. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
no, I'll finish this up real quick. So, um, this particular institution and many institutions, their job, the state employed them to collect tolls, and they had to do this through Brinks trucks and drivers and stuff like that.
Horrible.
And so somebody said, well, wouldn't it be better for you to just do this electronically? It's a simple thought, right? And so the idea was, how do we reduce usage of oil, reduce uses of trucks, reduce man hours, reduce the risk of crime by not having these guys go and pick up this money for the state, our client, and put themselves in all this potential risk and using this extra oil that nobody wants us to use because it endangers the environment and potentially having all this crime and stuff like that. How do we find a way to transfer these funds from these tolls and put into the state accounts, because it's for the states, for the people, right? But that thinking and that process eventually led to what Easy Pass is, which is what another way of being tracked. So
Cherish said, yeah, I did find it weird after COVID. So many places of entertainment went cashless. The MLB stadiums, the amusement park, and restaurants. Yeah, a lot of them still, and even some restaurants too.
yeah,
I'm like, what? It's messed up for the person that doesn't have any of those means, like the homeless people that that just want to get like something.
right.
Kind of weird, but man, dude, I was gonna ask, and then I wanted to ask this before we wrap this up. Did this have anything to do with you getting the job at the UN, or that was totally independent? Sorry for all these questions.
You know what? No, please. I'm good with all these questions, dude. I believe I can keep going too. But no, actually, you know what? So the UN preceded all this stuff. And it's funny. The UN again was a situation where I was looking for clients, because part of the job of making music is finding people who need to have music made and will pay for it. Right? That's what it is. I was looking for clients and I was checking out stuff on the internet, and I was kind of looking, and it's kind of funny because to this day I'm still looking for that. So if anybody's looking to be an agent for a producer / hit me up, let's talk.
Wow.
But I was was looking for an agent or agency, obviously, for clients, mainly clients in the studio, primarily for music and video. And I ran to this company based in Virginia and hit them up. And I didn't know exactly what they were, but I knew that they were an AV company. And I sent them my resume, and they called me back like quickly. And they said, "Wow, okay, well, listen, can we set up an interview?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And they said, "Well, when do you want it? How do we do it?" I said, "Well, we can do it like this, or we can use, video conferencing." They said, "Wait, video conferencing?" And it's funny. Let me just jump in with this. I've been kind of pushing this whole work from home thing since the early '90s because I thought a lot of this paradigm is fucking stupid. Now, obviously, every situation cannot be a work from home situation. It just can't be. And I'm very, very sensitive to that. I think there's a lot to understand the reality of that there are people who do not make a certain amount of money or are not in a certain kind of position, which does not mean they don't have the education. Don't get it twisted. They absolutely have the education and the skills and the ability to do so. But the nature of their work does not allow for a work from home thing, right? Farmers can't work from home. Migrants can't work from home. These people that feed us. Plumbers can't work from home. Electricians can't. These are extremely important positions and situations, and I think that our wannabe so-called modern world has lost respect for what these things are, what they mean, and how they apply to our lives. But that being said, I've spent a life so far building something for me to be able to work from home, because I've always wanted to have some sort of backup, I guess you could say, and actually more than backup. So not really backup, but like I said, at the beginning of all this, my primary thing in philosophy is to be able to create an environment where I can work and ensure my survivability and freedom into progeny well after me, and so this is how I've manifested that so far. That being said, it seemed that at the time, and this wasn't that long ago, this was like 2013, that even at that point, not enough people, not quite a few people were able to do video conferencing from their own place. So I said, yeah, I can do an interview right now if you guys can do this. They were like, "What? Okay, let's do that." And so I think we probably just used Skype or something and did an interview. And I didn't have this mixing console at the time, but at the time I had a larger upstairs control room, and I had the 24-track version of this board. This is 48 tracks. This one right here. I still actually have that 24-track console. It's in the larger room at the moment. And I called them. They saw me, and they saw all that, and they were just convinced that I knew what I was doing. It could have all been a fake fucking setup, but they saw that. They were convinced I knew what I was doing, and they said they had something for me if I was willing to. But they were going to try and jump on it right away. They needed to make some calls and get to me. Now, all this stuff happened within the course of about 2 or 3 days. I didn't know what the job was, but I was hoping for something, looking for something, whatever I could do at the time. I mean, I prefer clients in my place, but as long as it's in my field and something I can do, which I'm blessed, I can do a lot of different things. But I don't want to do the things that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Well, nobody does, but but we all do what we have to do. But I felt like I've earned enough or worked enough to not be able to have to not just have to be forced into those choices, right? So they called back a couple of days later, and it turned out that it was for the United Nations. They were hiring because they needed people, particularly for the General Assembly, and it wasn't this the. This is when they were working. They were doing construction work in the General Assembly, and so they had moved the General Assembly from the building it's normally housed in to like a temporary space or whatever, which I didn't realize until I got there. I thought it looked real fucking strange from what was on TV. I was like, wait a fucking minute, what the fuck is this? And I'm blessed that a couple people that were there that had some power in there really liked my work. They really liked my manner. And I guess they liked my tenacity because I had a habit of sneaking into rooms where I was not working, where I wasn't supposed to be, and playing with their equipment. And they actually caught me. So there was, you after my work shift, I would always kind of hang around and see if I could, what else I could get into, get some shit. It's like, fuck this, the UN. This is my place, the fucking UN, right? It's not the United States government. I mean, that's supposed to be my place too, but those motherfuckers will shoot you. The UN, or they'll shoot you at the UN too.
Man.
But it's based on different shit. So, technically, it's not like it's classified. That's not what it's supposed to be. So, I met a couple of cats who would let me sit in while they were, doing their work, operating the systems and the boards. And one dude had a penchant for falling asleep. So I said, no, go ahead, just go and I'll, where I got it. He's like, no, you sure? He's like, I said, no, I got it. And so he'd be there, napping out, and I'd be, whatever. And actually, what happened was the job manager came in because I could walk in the room at any time, and he saw the guy sleeping, but he saw me there working the board. And I'm like, stuff like that or whatever. And I'm like, and he was like, no, it's okay, because he's, I guess, just happy that somebody's working enough. It's just, because I'm operating stuff, I'm opening mics, delegates are asking, I'm, pressing buttons, doing my fucking shit. And I came in the next day, and he said, I'm really glad to see that you were doing that. So you do that. So I said, you see my resume? He's like, yeah, I know, but everybody's in here trying to. I was like, yeah, I'm sure everybody is, but nobody else has the balls to just go and sneak into a room and just, shit, fucking United Nations. But, if you're going to do it any place, right? And he's like, well, so, you know how to do this? She's like, I said, listen, whatever I don't know, I'll just break it. You guys will fix it.
Comedy, man.
And he thought it was comedy too. And I looked at him like, well, I'm not fucking joking. I'm fucking doing this working, son. You got the fucking money. If whatever I'm fucking working, you fix it. Fuck. Fix it. I'm gonna do my fucking shit. Shut the fuck up. Fuck. I'm gonna act like I did something wrong because something got broke. Fuck out of here, man. I'm trying to fucking do a job. I didn't build this fucking thing. I'm just trying to operate this shit.
Man.
And next thing you know, I was there for 4 years.
That's a trip, man. Shoot.
Yeah. Got to hear a bunch of things that people wouldn't otherwise hear. Not necessarily secret. It's just a matter of being in the right room at the right time. And there were only a handful of people with those positions. Blessedly, I got to be one of them. So I got to hear and witness some very interesting things because nobody else would have gotten to hear if it wasn't for me and that person in that room. And a number of those, matter of fact, one of the engineers, one of the regular engineers for Lee Scratch Perry was one of the guys I worked with. He was one of the other engineers.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, a Grammy Award-winning producer who produced a whole bunch of stuff for DMX and Rough Riders, who in the last, I want to say, 18 months, finally won a $3 million settlement because he wasn't properly paid or ever paid by them. He was one of the guys that you went as well.
Wow. That's
Right?
that's pretty mad, man. That's madcap, man. That's a trip.
So
Interesting stuff, man. It's a trip where, especially like this music, it has taken you, man, and just the things that you've been able to not only witness but also like, you know, have a hand and just participate in, and let alone just kind of like almost like seems like the spook that sat at the door. I don't know, you know that movie, right?
yeah, no, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. Listen, hey, you know what? All I can do is thank the creator, and all I can say is, you know what? All that is so far. I'm blessed to still be here at the moment.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I will still be here. I still got more stuff I'm working on. Hopefully, I'll be able to get this out extremely shortly, and I mean extremely shortly. And I'm working on new shit. I didn't work on a goddamn thing these past 5 days with Thanksgiving and the whole shit. I literally just worked on my ranking in Elite Dangerous video games. That was it. And keeping an eye on my fucking crazy ass family. Other than that, and my cat. And he keeps the eye on us. I'm fucking taking the fucking attention.
That's funny.
Well,
shoot.
and that's it.
Well, shoot,
Today's
we'll
Monday.
definitely have you back.
This, you know, I
We'll,
be glad to. Yeah, please. Definitely
man, you know, a lot of cats.
especially if a lot more to talk about than just me.
Man, I mean, dude, you've done a lot, and plus the fact that like there's other things that I felt like I just scratched the surface on, but even like Cherish was asking, like, you know, you got to bring them back for a part 2, and that's what I like about these things. It's like, it's one thing, yeah, I made this page to celebrate not just our history, but people that are still present with us, as well as like just have these conversations about things that we've experienced, you know, even in the greater scheme of things as a people, as our community, but also with everyone else. So it's interesting just to hear, you know, the things that you've, you know, the things in your life that you've faced, and also, you know, have been in areas of activities that a lot of us probably wouldn't be in, you know. So I really appreciate you, man. Before we go,
no, thank you, brother.
what advice would you give anybody, man? I mean, I know you said a lot of cool stuff,
Advice?
but yeah.
Look both ways before crossing the street.
Real talk.
That shit.
Old school advice.
Okay, here's some advice. Don't put your money in a savings account. Buy some stocks. Find a good stock. Make it something that you like to use. To start off with, stock market, even at its, well, I don't want to say at its worst, but the stock market generally gives a return of about 10% a year. A regular savings account will barely give you 1% return in a year.
Wow. That's some financial literacy. Yeah, man, I have to be more literate in that. But man, we really appreciate you, Jared. Thanks a lot for even coming on. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you for listening. Hey, brother, it's always good catching up with you. You know what's up.
Yeah,
and thank you,
man. I got your number.
And feel free to reach out. Anything I can do to help, advise, whatever. And if you got something that I can do for you or your project, whatever it might be, you never know. I might be able to just point you in the right direction. That's what we're here for, right? That's what community does. So hit me up.
If you ever visit LA, man, let me know. We have to meet up for lunch or something like that, man. That would be mad cool.
Absolutely.
I gotta
Definitely.
get out there to Brooklyn because I got a grandaunt that lives out there, and when I'm out there, I'm gonna say what's up. And my homegirl Carla lives out there too.
Oh,
She's on
hell
here.
yeah. Come on. Folks always come through here when they're in town. So definitely feel free. Hit me up.
Man, thanks a lot, brother. And hey,
Yeah,
happy
brother.
Jimi
Thank you
Hendrix
too, man.
birthday, and happy
No,
birthday to you.
facts.
It's an
Thank
honor,
you,
homie.
brother. I'll catch you later,
Yes, I.
man. You guys be cool.
Peace, man. And God bless.
Peace.
Yes,
Later.
I. Peace.